Chapter 559. Xionghuan, do you still have the strength to fight against the immortal who killed you back then? Ling Xiao frowned slightly. He could not afford to underestimate an expert from the ancient era. Moreover, this person was able to suppress Xionghuan. His strength must be extremely terrifying. However, now that he needed to borrow the power of the Western Borders prodigies to maintain this realm, his current situation might not be any better. With the Cold Moon Immortal token in hand, Ling Xiao could still fight with him. Master, I vaguely remember that although that person's cultivation was strong, he was still suppressed by the heavenly Tao here. He was a 9th stage Great Emperor, and Xionghuan wanted to say something, but stopped. There was a trace of doubt on his dignified face. Speak. Ling Xiao had a rough idea of what a 9th stage Great Emperor was. There were two possibilities for the so-called heavenly Tao's restraint in a realm. The first was that the mighty figures of the upper realm used their supreme divine power to seal the realm, and even used some methods to absorb the realm's spirit qi, causing it to be insufficient and unable to allow living beings to take the final step. The second was that this realm was ancient and had countless powerhouses. These people absorbed the spirit qi of heaven and earth to cultivate and had a long lifespan. However, the speed at which the spirit qi of heaven and earth was produced was far slower than the speed at which cultivators absorbed it. Therefore, as time passed, the spirit qi was thin and could no longer support the appearance of supreme powerhouses. Thus, that medicinal pill was the crux of the matter. After refining it for 1,000 years, it must contain supreme divine power. If a 9th stage Great Emperor consumed it, he might be able to take the final step. This was the so-called secret to becoming an immortal. However, this Cold Moon Ancestral Master was obviously not from this realm. She was most likely the immortal powerhouse that Xionghuan mentioned. Since she had damaged her own cultivation to come here and seal the great demon and the demonic bone, why did she have to do something unnecessary and pass down the ancient alchemy skills of her sect to refine that pill? Master, although that immortal came to suppress us back then, I have a feeling that she has ulterior motives. Xionghuan frowned, as if he was recalling the battle back then. Oh, why? At this moment, Ling Xiao's heart was filled with doubts. According to his inference, the demonic bone was sealed in all 4 realms. Then, this place should be the immortal's prison. However, Xionghuan kept saying that he had escaped here with the demonic bone. Wasn't that too much of a coincidence? Several demon bones were sealed in a small world? Or perhaps, when Xionghuan was first killed and sealed, the immortals chose this place to make the heaven and earth cage. Then, they chose the sacred sect to guard the cage and guard this world. However, for some reason, Ling Xiao seemed to smell a conspiracy. Since she had already killed me and sealed me away, she could have completely sealed this place with her own methods. Why would this remnant appear in this world again? Since Ling Xiao had entered this world, it meant that this ruin had not been completely buried. Although the Lord's talent is terrifying and he has a devil body. However, with his current cultivation level, if that immortal clan member intentionally concealed his whereabouts, he would not be able to find the entrance to the ruins. Either that immortal race's clansman was careless, or she had an ulterior motive. That's right, Ling Xiao nodded calmly. This was also what confused him the most. If the immortal race had really intended to seal the demonic bone, they would not have opened this place casually, let alone leave behind an inheritance to refine pills for generations. Although the secret of the immortals was now spread by Run, Yueying, or the sacred sect. However, Ling Xiao also knew from Yu Zhao's memories that before this, the Cold Moon Immortal Palace would also select a batch of disciples to enter the remnant to train every 40 years. As for those people, they had all died there. It was obvious that they had become the nourishment for the spiritual energy of the immortals. However, it did not make sense to say that it was to seal the demonic bone. After all, as Xionghuan had said 1,000 years ago, when the immortal race's cultivation level was at its peak, he had the power to seal this world and seal the demonic bone. Now, Why would he go through so much trouble to set up so many backup plans? What had he been doing in the past 1,000 years that he had fallen to the point where he needed to devour the spiritual energy of all living beings? My lord, although I have died, I may be able to fight a ninth-grade divine emperor. Moreover, the immortal race's cultivation level is not much stronger than mine after 1,000 years. Xionghuan's expression turned solemn. He naturally knew the significance of the sky demon's true bone to his lord. Although he had been reborn, there was only one sky demon. In particular, the latter's bloodline and bones were formed in response to the grand rhythm of heaven and earth and were born at the beginning of the primordial age. If he could fuse with the true bone again and achieve the Genesis demon body, then his lord would be the true lord. Otherwise, no matter how strong his cultivation level was in this life, it would be difficult for him to fight against the immortal race. Here are some soul-nourishing pills and a few Tao artifacts. You can cultivate and recover in peace. Ling Xiao nodded, took out a chinquin bag from his chest, and handed it to Xionghuan. Although the latter's cultivation level was no longer there, he still stood at the top of the holy continent. With his help, he would have more confidence in dealing with the sacred sect. Thank you, Lord. Xionghuan bowed, while Ling Xiao's figure disappeared and reappeared in the heavenly palace. At this moment, Ning'er was sitting cross-legged in the square in front of the heavenly palace, and there seemed to be an immortal aura circulating around her. 7 colored rays of light spread out above her head, forming the shadow of an ancient immortal. Ling Xiao's eyes narrowed. He quickly walked to Ning'er's side and carefully observed the changes in the Tao patterns on her body. She has been in this state since she came back. It seems that she is comprehending the Tao laws. Feng Ling walked out from the side and glanced at Ling Xiao indifferently. With the spiritual power in her body now, she can definitely enter the divine general realm, but her comprehension of the Tao laws seems to be restricting her breakthrough. However, as long as she has the Tao laws with her, this girl's strength will definitely increase greatly. At this moment, Feng Ling's pretty face also had a trace of relief. Ning'er's talent was indeed terrifying. At such a young age, she already had the potential to comprehend the Tao. It would not be long before another peerless genius appeared in the Holy Continent. It was just that no one knew what kind of Tao laws she would comprehend in the end. How was that remnant soul? Ling Xiao smiled faintly and turned to look at Feng Ling. However, he saw a flash of mockery on her face. In the ancient glazed pagoda, no one can break free from my seal. Haha, Feng Ling, then let's discuss something. A sinister look suddenly flashed in Ling Xiao's eyes. Help me kill a few people, and I will agree to any conditions. How about that? Little girl, since you are so awesome, help me kill the divine master of the sacred sect. By then, the holy continent will be in my hands. You can choose whatever you want. Why should I help you kill people? You are a demon, and I am not. Feng Ling rolled her eyes at Ling Xiao before turning around and disappearing. I knew it. Ling Xiao shook his head and sighed. However, there was a trace of surprise in his eyes when he looked at Feng Ling. In the past, he only knew that this girl's cultivation was terrifying and her background was mysterious. However, there was no clear boundary between them. But now, since she did not even care about an 8th-grade divine emperor, why did she insist on staying in the ancient glazed pagoda? Chapter 560. Ling Xiao stood with his hands behind his back in the Sky Palace. His starry eyes flickered with a hint of vicissitudes. He clearly remembered that when he first met Feng Ling, she looked like she had never seen the world, but she felt very close to his scent. In the past year, although the relationship between the two of them could not be said to be deep, it definitely could not be said to be incompatible. But why? I'm not the destined one. How can I have a childhood sweetheart? For a moment, Ling Xiao became more and more interested in Feng Ling's background. The fog grew thicker, and the wind blew. He wondered how many stinky fishes and chopping boards would be left in the world when the fog dissipated. Let's refine this immortal token first. It's time to harvest the remaining leaks. In the end, Ling Xiao sat on the ground. Demonic light surged around him and wrapped around the ancient token. Suddenly, Moonlight overflowed as if it was struggling. However, Ling Zhao's divine soul was at the 5th stage Emperor realm, and Yu Xiao was only at the 6th stage Emperor realm. Therefore, after struggling for a moment, the soul light on the ancient token finally gradually dimmed. At the same time, Shijiang, Great Xia, Emperor Xia, looked at the Yuan Emperor in horror. The emperor robe on his body had already been shattered by the spiritual light. Even further away, countless armored soldiers of the Yuan were standing quietly. However, the most horrifying thing was that the hundreds of thousands of soldiers actually didn't make a single sound as they stood on the spot. Even breathing seemed to be non-existent. Yuan Emperor, you dare to destroy Great Xia? Our saint ancestor won't let you go. Emperor Xia's brows were filled with despair. He didn't expect the Yuan Emperor to be so ambitious to conquer the entire Xinjiang. The day before yesterday, Great Zhou, no, it should be called Ling Dynasty, collapsed. Ning Tiants led 1,000,000 soldiers and fled to the Great Qin Empire's capital, defending the city with their lives. The Yuan Emperor didn't stop and didn't make any adjustments. He led the army straight to Great Xia. Moreover, the most frightening thing was that these Yuan soldiers seemed to be unkillable. Emperor Xia saw with his own eyes that a Yuan general's head was chopped off, but they were still fighting bravely. Evil demon. This was a true devil. Originally, the people of the western border were prejudiced against the Empress of the Great Qin. However, even though the latter had killed millions of soldiers in that battle, no one had witnessed it with their own eyes. Thus, no one in the world knew what kind of methods Qin Wushuang had used. But the primitive emperor was different. He actually personally led this army of nearly 1,000,000 to conquer the world. F***CK. Primitive emperor, how dare you? Aren't you afraid that the Saint sect will find out and wipe out your entire clan? Currently, Emperor Xia was the only emperor god left in Grand Xia. Therefore, under the emperor's aura of a 6th-grade primitive emperor, he was nothing. However, Emperor Xia had thought that with the Xia dynasty in turmoil, he would send a message to the divine ancestor through his soul. He thought that the divine ancestor would come down from the sky with the power of heaven and earth and save him from the clutches of evil. However, it was still an extravagant hope. Not only was there no response from the divine ancestor, but even Grand State Preceptor Qiao Yunli was uncontactable. F***CK. Divine ancestor, didn't you say you would unify the western frontier and help me become an immortal? So, in the end, I'm the only one who has to bear all the responsibility? Great Xia's sacred ancestor? Today, no one can save you. In the primitive emperor's eyes, a dark and evil light flashed. Then he suddenly stretched out his palm and turned it into a 4 directions ghost seal, which fell on Emperor Xia's head. Primitive emperor, if you want to kill me, you have to pay a price. Emperor Xia roared angrily. At this point, he was already a stranger. This dynasty, after stealing for 18 years, finally, it was time to return it. But now, he was the emperor of the dynasty. Although he was going to die, he had a shocking motivation to die. Outside Emperor Xia's body, there seemed to be a resplendent dragon shadow, which turned into a palm and fell on the ghost seal. The space was completely distorted, turning into endless waves that swept across the entire imperial city. Countless ancient buildings collapsed in an instant. Even the imperial palace of the Great Xia dynasty was destroyed. The suffocating emperor's aura turned into a wind vortex, which overturned many great Yuan generals. However, Emperor Xia was already an arrow at the end of its flight, and his cultivation level was 1 grade lower than the primitive emperor. Under the ghost seal, the golden light was shattered. Along with it, Emperor Xia's body and soul were also shattered. However, before his death, a touch of bitterness appeared on his face. Without the emperor's horoscope, he was destined to be miserable. If the primitive emperor attacked Great Xia later, the divine ancestor's formation would have been completed. By then, a mere primitive emperor could be killed with a wave of his hand. But in the end, with a heart full of unwillingness and longing for the divine ancestor, Emperor Xia died. Emperor, next, A great Yuan divine emperor stood beside the primitive emperor with a touch of intense fear in his eyes. In just a few days, the master of great Yuan in front of them seemed to have a great change in temperament. Originally, the primitive emperor was domineering and unparalleled, but he was not evil. But now, feeling the emperor's qi emitted from the latter's body, for some reason, there was no reverence in their hearts, only fear. Kill them all, go to great qi. The primitive emperor only said coldly, then turned and walked towards the depths of the Xia Palace. Northern border, nine-tailed fox clan. Bai Zhishi stared blankly at the beautiful figure sitting cross-legged in front of her, with a touch of intense fear on her small face. Big sister, you mean, Zhishi, can I trust you? Bai Zhiro sighed softly, with a touch of sadness on her pretty face. Big sister, what are you talking about? Of course you can trust me. Although you were trapped in this abyss when I was born, but Big Sister's loyalty to love is something that Zhishi has always yearned for. Bai Zhishi's eyes flickered. She did not know why, but at this moment, a black-robed figure appeared in her mind, like a demon god descending to the world, blocking the sword light that filled the sky for her. A thought turned into an obsession. It was probably like that. If it was not because of Ling Zhao's appearance that day, this ninth princess would not have fallen into the divine soul engraving so quickly, unable to extricate herself. Similarly, although Han Qingqiu's divine soul was also engraved by Ling Zhao's divine sense. But after all, she did not have any feelings, or rather, she did not understand feelings and had never experienced life and death. So, in the next moment, she would probably passively encounter some setbacks so that she could completely fall in love with him. Loyalty? Baijiro shook her head and smiled bitterly, with tears in her eyes. Zhishi, I have something that I need your help with. Big sister, as long as I can do it, I will definitely help you. Baijishi nodded her small head, patted her small chest, and vowed solemnly. This matter concerns the fate of my nine-tailed clan. You must not let a third person know about it. If someone is really following you, you must try your best to escape and stay in the lower realm. Don't come back. It's relatively safer there. Baijiro took a deep breath, with a solemn expression on her pretty face. The person who came in person before had already shown his impatience. If she continued to be stubborn, she was afraid that she would have to bear new sins. However, that divine pagoda could not fall into the hands of the saint sect. Otherwise, this world would be slaughtered. Even if the Real Lord returned, he would not be able to reverse the situation. Chapter 561. The Lower Bound? Yes. Elder sister, don't worry. I promise to complete the mission. Looking at Baijiro's serious face, Baijishi was stunned for a moment. Then she gradually became serious. Suddenly, she felt that this was a very difficult mission. Most importantly, she could finally sneak out and find Lord Ling Xiao. Okay, Zhishi, listen to me. I left something in the lower bound. It's in my son Yi Fan's soul sea. This thing is very important. We can't let it fall into the hands of the saint. Baijiro pondered for a moment and finally clenched her teeth. If you find Yi Fan, it's elder sister's child. Okay, elder sister, don't worry. I will definitely find nephew. Halfway through her words, Baijishi suddenly froze. Her pretty face turned pale. At that time, Ling Xiao erased part of her memory, but it was only about the sky demon's real body. She went to the Yi family to find Ling Xiao because he said that her nephew was a demon and forced him to leave. As for where Yi Fan went and what happened to him, Baijishi did not know. But she felt a little uneasy. What should I do? If elder sister knows that Ling Xiao has a grudge against my nephew, who should I help? Zhishi, what's wrong? Baijiro looked at the girl in front of her with some surprise, especially when she saw the latter's uncertain face. She couldn't help but frown her eyebrows. Elder sister, it's okay. I will definitely try my best to find nephew. Baijishi was shocked. Her small face was faintly pale. At this time, Baijiro shook her head slightly. I want you to kill him. Oh, okay, elder sister, don't worry. I will definitely. Baijishi nodded blankly. But suddenly, her face became completely dull. "Elder sister, what did you say? I want you to kill him. Jishi, find Yi Fan and kill him." Baijiro's eyes were red and tears were surging in her eyes. Yi Fan was her son, but since he was born, she had not taken care of him for a single day. Back then, Baijiro had taken advantage of that person's breakthrough to use the glazed ancient pagoda to force her way down to the lower realm. She had done so in order to escape the pursuit of the Holy Church. Getting married and having children was just to put the ancient treasure into the child's soul sea. As such, no matter how powerful that person was, he would not be able to find them in a short period of time. Baijiro is betting that the Lord will return and eliminate the tribulation. However, from the looks of it now, the chances were slim. With the ancient pagoda in hand, Yi Fan's cultivation would definitely soar rapidly. At that time, once he became the center of attention, he would be completely exposed. Therefore, in order to prevent the Shangzhou province from falling into the hands of the demons, Baijiro had to kill Yi Fan and bury the ancient tower along with his corpse in the lower realms. As for Baijishi, this girl was proficient in the Space Dao law. Even if an emperor god wanted to capture her, he would have to use countless methods. Moreover, the girl was already in the Pong realm. As long as Yi Fan died, with her talent, she would be invincible in the lower worlds. And with the shackles of the great Dao, even if that person had the means to send people to the lower bound, how could they be Baijishi's opponent? Only then could it be said to be foolproof. As long as the ancient glazed pagoda did not fall into the hands of the sacred sect, that person would not dare to easily slaughter the nine-tailed clan. Lord, I hope you can return soon. Only then can the guilt in my heart dissipate a little. Big sister, is there something that you can't tell me? Tell me, I know a very powerful young master in the Shangzhou province. Perhaps he will have a way to help you. After returning from the lower realms, Baijishi's admiration for Ling Xiao had increased with each passing day, although she did not know why she felt this way. However, for some reason, she missed him every day. She had forgotten the scene of Ling Xiao turning into a demon, but she still deeply remembered the young man who had descended from the sky with a face full of sunshine. It was as if as long as he was around, all the coldness in the world would disappear. Jishi, you must remember that you're not allowed to tell anyone what I want you to do, including Mother. Do you understand? Baijiro took a deep breath. Her tone was unprecedentedly serious. She had believed in the human race, but in the end, she had believed in the wrong person. As a result, she, the nine-tailed clan's strongest talent 300 years ago, had missed the best years of her life in vain. Now, she was being controlled, imprisoned, and living a life worse than death. Baijiro would probably never trust anyone again in her life. Oh, Baijishi nodded her head in confusion, but in the next moment, her eyes suddenly narrowed. Someone is coming. Find a reason to go into closed-door training, and then secretly descend to the lower realms. You must try your best to hide it from everyone. And this, put in your soul sea. Baijiro heard the movement from the top of the abyss and threw a small golden bell to Baijishi. This bell is called the Golden Bell of Fate. It is a heavenly treasure and also my natal spiritual treasure. It contains a wisp of my consciousness. One day, you will meet someone who can make this bell resonate 9 times. You can tell them where Fan is buried. Don't tell anyone else. Big sister, don't worry. I understand. Baijishi's pink eyes revealed a touch of determination. She reached out and took the golden bell. Her delicate body strangely disappeared, and there was not even a ripple in the space. The Space Dao law was the strongest Dao. It could be used unexpectedly in a battle, but the truly powerful ones were still hidden. Jishi, the future of the Shangzhou depends on you. Baijiro only closed her eyes again when there was no more sound coming from the abyss. She regained her calmness. The power of the golden bell was enough for Baijishi to withstand an attack from an emperor god. Even an emperor god would not be able to easily break through its defense. She put in her soul, see, just in case. After all, Baijiro knew the methods of the saint very well. It was easy to search one's soul and capture one's soul. As for whether by she could complete her mission in the end, it could only depend on her luck. Fan her. Mother is sorry. Mother has tried her best. The seal in your body will only be broken after 16 years. Master has not returned yet, so you can only die. Baijiro raised her head. A drop of crystal clear tear slid down her cheek. Suddenly, a figure slowly appeared in the void in front of him. Jishi was here? The person who came was wearing a robe as white as snow. She had a graceful figure and looked 70% similar to Baijiro. She was the nine-tailed fox queen, one of the most powerful great demons in the northern border. Outsiders knew that the nine-tailed clan had close ties with the saint. Although they ignored the secular world, they had a unique honor in the northern border. Now that the saint controlled the four borders, although the demons had deep conflicts with the human race, the situation was better than the demons. Wasn't it better to be alive? And it was because of this honor that became the shackle that bound the nine-tailed clan. They lived in seclusion in Qingqiu and lied about avoiding the world. Wasn't that a long-term plan? Now that the saint was in charge and Qingqiu was protected by the divine master, if they acted recklessly, once the Shengzhou changed its master one day, the nine-tailed clan would be doomed eternally. In the end, the nine-tailed fox queen in front of them was the real scheming person. Chapter 562. Never. Baijiro shook her head. Her expression was extremely cold. She naturally knew her mother very well. She placed the interests of her clansmen above all else. Thus, she was a good clan leader and the most prestigious monstrous beast king in the northern frontier. However, as a mother, she was most likely the same as Baijiro. Neither of them could be considered competent. With the arrival of the divine master, the nine-tailed clan was in imminent danger. The main culprit behind all of this was her. Baijiro knew very well that her mother had no choice but to shoulder the mission of the Holy Church. However, knowing was one thing, and feeling sorrow in her heart was another. There was no child who did not wish to be protected by their mother. Thus, she hated the nine-tailed fox queen and was unable to forgive herself. She even wanted to die. However, compared to 300 years ago, the debt she owed her was far, far inferior. She was the one who had personally ruined the light of the Shengzhou province. She had caused the death of the master who had doted on her like a younger sister. Of course, everything that Baijiro was doing was to protect the nine-tailed clan. She understood that man even better than she understood her mother. After all, they had truly loved each other. Oh, or rather, Baijiro had believed that the two of them had truly loved each other. However, in the end, thus, once he achieved his wish, not only would she die, but the entire nine-tailed clan would likely not be able to escape his vicious hands. Jiro, exactly. How many secrets have you hidden from me? The nine-tailed fox queen stood with her hands behind her back. A complicated look of bitterness filled her beautiful eyes. 300 years ago, Baijiro had betrayed the Holy Church and fled to the lower realm with a treasure. That day, the Holy Church's divine master had personally arrived. The Fox Queen had thought that the nine-tailed clan would cease to exist. However, to her surprise, the divine master did not kill the Fox clan. Instead, he ordered the Fox Queen to retrieve Baijiro. It was also from that day onward that the Fox clan was gradually isolated from the northern frontier's monstrous beasts. In other words, they were isolated from the entire four frontier. Hearing that, Baijiro no longer spoke. Instead, she slowly closed her eyes. There were some things that she could not say. Otherwise, the Fox clan would be consigned to eternal damnation. Deceiving the masses with lies was just the sin of that person's words. The people believed that the divine master was an immortal. Thus, how could they possibly care about what a monstrous beast said? A lowly person's words carried little weight. The divine master ordered me to take back his spiritual treasure from you within a year. Jiro, this matter concerns the life and death of the Fox clan. Do you really not care at all? The nine-tailed Fox Queen's voice was a little hoarse, and there was a look of pain on her beautiful face. How could she not know that a spiritual treasure that the Divine Master had been coveting for 300 years must be of great importance? However, the more it was like this, the more the Fox clan would do once he took back the treasure. Mother, I know what I'm doing. Baijiro shook her head. The calmness in her eyes was the last straw that angered the nine-tailed fox. Baijiro, back then, if you had listened to my advice and not entered the central border, you wouldn't have been affected by karma. Then, you wouldn't have ended up like this. Do you really think I don't know what you've done? The nine-tailed fox empress' pretty face was extremely cold, and there was a kind of helplessness in her, as if she expected better from him. Back then, Baijiro had gone to the central border to gain experience with the title of the nine-tailed clan's strongest genius. Originally, there were no twists and turns on this trip, but she just had to fall in love with a human. The nine-tailed fox empress tried to persuade her, but was rejected by her. A demon's life was hurried and boring. If she was willing to have someone, she would not regret it even if she died. Although the nine-tailed fox empress did not know what happened after that, she believed in Baijiro's character. Someone who could make her steal the treasure and descend to the lower realm must have been bewitched. Moreover, it was someone she truly cared about. Mother, what you know might be what others want you to know. I've let too many people down in my life. I deserve to die, but I can't die now. If there's nothing else, please go back, Mother. You, evil creature, I think you'll only be satisfied when the Fox clan is destroyed. The nine-tailed fox empress shouted angrily, but Baijiro had already closed her eyes again. Fine. Baijiro, I don't blame you. It's my fault for giving birth to such a heartless bastard. Finally, the nine-tailed fox empress gritted her teeth and disappeared. However, just as she appeared at the top of the abyss, she saw a divine light suddenly shoot into the sky from the depths of the green hill. Then, a layer of thunderclouds surged from the sky and enveloped the entire green hill. Zigzagging and glaring tribulation, lightning suddenly fell. The sound of the great Tao reverberated for thousands of miles. Immortal clouds covered the sky, revealing endless mysteries. In the sky above the green hill, layers of space were overlapping. Tao patterns flowed like a brilliant sea of stars. Even with the nine-tailed fox empress temperament, there was still a hint of shock on her face. She could feel that the immortal light was coming from Baijishi's Qingxi Palace. In other words, the current number one prodigy of the Fox clan seemed to have broken through, but that's not right. Didn't Baijishi's cultivation just enter the Paong realm not long ago? Could it be? Suddenly, the nine-tailed fox empress' eyes narrowed. She seemed to have guessed something. A breakthrough in the Tao law and a phenomenon of heaven and earth. Yes, the Tao law that Jishi comprehended was the Tao of space. It was the most mysterious of the 3,000 great Taos. It was normal for such a great Tao comprehension to cause a phenomenon as long as there was a slight breakthrough. As expected of the nine-tailed fox clan's prodigy that only appears once in 1,000 years. She was also the hope of the Green Hill now. The nine-tailed fox empress figure flashed, and she instantly disappeared on the spot. When she reappeared, she was already in front of the Qingxi Palace. At this moment, the Fox clan's patriarch Bai Qian was already standing at the entrance of the palace with his hands behind his back. There was also a hint of joy in his old eyes. The heavens have blessed the Fox clan. The two of them looked at each other and smiled. However, before they could push the door open and enter the palace, they suddenly heard Baijishi's clear and sweet voice. Go and guard outside the palace. My Tao law comprehension has reached its peak. Perhaps I can take this opportunity to enter the divine general realm. Don't let anyone disturb me. Yes, Nine Princess. The palace door opened, and two Fox clan maidservants walked out slowly. When they saw the Fox Empress and the Fox Ancestor standing outside the door, a hint of panic flashed across their faces. Greetings, Shi. Patriarch Bai Qian gestured for them to keep quiet. Then he said softly to the nine-tailed Fox Empress, seal this peak. No one is allowed to enter at will. Don't disturb Jishi's cultivation. Yes, Patriarch. The two of them glanced at the young girl's figure sitting cross-legged in the palace through the gap in the door. Finally, they turned and left. When the two of their auras completely disappeared, the young girl who had her eyes closed in the palace opened her cute pink eyes. A hint of slyness flashed across her small face. He, mother, patriarch, will meet again someday. At this moment, a layer of ripples appeared in the space. Then it turned calm. However, Bai Jishi had already disappeared from the top of the palace. Outside the green hill, a figure in a white coat appeared and stood above the ancient forest. Bai Jishi turned back to look in the direction of the green hill. A hint of depression flashed across her pretty face. With her means, it was not impossible for her to descend to the lower realm. However, she would have to pay a price. Did Lord Ling, Xiao, give you fan? Forget it. I'll go to the eastern border first and ask young master about it. Then, I'll decide what to do next. Yes, I don't miss young master. I just want to complete Big Sister's task as soon as possible. Chapter 563. It was only after Bai Jishi's figure disappeared that several terrifying demonic figures walked out from Gu Linshen's place. Big Brother, that seems to be the nine-tailed clan's little princess? That's right, it's her. At the head of the group, a tall tiger demon with flames all over his body nodded indifferently. An aura that was close to that of a god emperor quietly spread around his body. The dark and deep markings on his body inexplicably carried a sense of intimidation. Big Brother, didn't King Yu say to capture the nine-tailed clan as soon as we see them? All the demons looked at the tiger demon in confusion. F*CK. Big Brother, you're too arrogant. You even dare to go against King Yu's orders? Once they thought of the black-clothed demon king with terrifying means, fear flashed across the group of great demons' faces. Although King Yu was a woman, her means and temperament were terrifying, especially her pair of pitch-black eyes, which seemed to contain the 9 underworld's fire. With a glance, she could incinerate one's soul and kill demons without leaving a trace. In just a few months, King Yu had gathered a group of great demons from the barren mountain with her peerless beauty. She occupied the land and was crowned as King Yu. She vaguely had the potential to be on par with the 10 great demon kings. Should I secretly send a message to King Yu and tell her that this fat tiger is disloyal? If that's the case, will King Yu see me in a different light and make me a demon general or something? What do you know? This 9th princess has comprehended the law of space. Even I am not confident that I can capture her. The tiger demon shouted coldly. His blood-red eyes faintly flickered with seriousness. The 9th princess of the Fox clan was known as the most talented demon in the past 1,000 years. Not only was the Fox clan precious, but it was also said that 2 of the 3 great demon emperors wanted to take her as a disciple. However, they were rejected by the Fox clan's ancestor, Bai Qian. Therefore, if they touched her, the 9 Underworld's mountain would definitely face the revenge of the Fox clan or even the entire demon race. In the northern region, thousands of demons roared proudly. However, unlike the deceit of the human race, although the demon race had submitted to the Holy Church, they were surprisingly united internally. Even if there were some demon races that were naturally hostile to each other, there had never been a God Emperor Great Demon who took action. This was an iron law. Once violated, they would definitely face the wrath of the entire demon race. Buzz. Just as the tiger demon was deep in thought with a frown, the void rippled quietly. A woman in black with a cold and arrogant expression slowly walked over. A wave of invisible heat quietly spread out, and the entire ancient forest fell silent. Greetings, King Yu, the little princess of the 9-tailed clan. Is it that monstrous genius who comprehended the space Tao law? A playful look flashed across Nine Nether's face. Flame seemed to be dancing in his pitch-black eyes. The Tao law of space was indeed troublesome. If one was not careful, it would be easy to alert the enemy. Leave it to me. However, since she wanted to uncover the secrets of the 9-tailed tribe's first princess, she could not miss this opportunity. Moreover, it was the middle of the night, and this girl was traveling alone. Most likely, she had snuck out. In this way, capturing her without anyone knowing would save him a lot of trouble. A 13 or 14-year-old girl. No matter how high one's talent was, one's temperament was inevitably immature. The horizon turned dark, and Nine Nether's figure vanished into thin air. 100 miles away, a small figure descended from the void and looked at the mountain peak in the distance in surprise. At that moment, there was a spirit treasure emitting a strange light on the mountain peak. It was as dazzling as the stars in the night sky. Wow, it's a spirit treasure. Baijishi's pink eyes were charming, and a beautiful smile appeared on her small face. My luck is simply too good. I picked up a spirit treasure as soon as I went out. However, just as Baijishi jumped to the mountain peak and picked up the rainbow bead from the ground, the world suddenly collapsed. An invisible pulling force instantly grabbed her jade-like hand and pulled her into a strange space. Oh no! Baijishi's pretty face turned pale. The Tao law around her surged, and her figure instantly disappeared. Clang! Ouch! After a breath, she reappeared on the spot. Her forehead was red, and her pink eyes were filled with an indescribable anger. Who is it? Which shameless person dares to plot against me? Come out, and let's have a fair fight if you dare. Baijishi put her hands on her waist and looked up at the sky. At this moment, she could feel that this space should be inside a spirit treasure. In other words, the moment she touched the rainbow bead, she was forcibly absorbed into the bead. Don't waste your energy. I know that you have comprehended the Tao law of space. That's why I used this bead to trap you. The moment Baijishi's voice fell, a slightly playful chuckle suddenly came from the void in the distance. A graceful figure in black slowly walked over and finally stood in front of Baijishi. At this moment, although her face was a little cold, there was a hint of a smile at the corner of her lips. This girl was obviously inexperienced and naive. She was completely unguarded when she went out. However, speaking of which, Baijishi was the #1 talent of the Demon Clan in 1,000 years. Since birth, she had been cherished by the great demons of the northern frontier. She had never seen the sinister side of people. Moreover, the pearl was multicolored and looked mystical. Anyone who saw it would be curious. Nine Nether was also a little afraid of the Tao law of space. If he was not careful, he was afraid that this little girl would slip away. This bead was called the Sky Locking Bead. It was a high-grade Tao artifact. It was the treasure in the Cosmos bag that Ling Xiao had given her. It was not good for killing, but it was a treasure for imprisoning space. Originally, Ling Xiao had given Nine Nether this bead to save her life. At the critical moment, it could imprison a strong enemy and give her a chance to escape. However, over the past few months, at least 80 Demon Clan experts had died in the bead, if not 1,000. You bad guy. Baijishi frowned slightly. Her small face was cold. At this moment, she was more or less panicking. Never in her wildest dreams would she have thought that before her grand plan could be accomplished, she would be captured the moment she stepped out of the door. Moreover, looking at this woman's fierce face, she was obviously a vicious demon. Sob, sob, sob. Lord Ling Xiao, will Jishi never see you again? Thinking of this, a layer of mist appeared in Baijishi's pink eyes. Even Nine Nether could not help but sigh softly. Eldest miss, with your temperament, where did you get the courage to run away from home and wander the world? I'll ask you a few questions. If you answer truthfully, I won't hurt you. Of course, with Nine Nether's caution, she did not dare to lightly harm this pearl of the Demon Clan. If she cooperated, she would at most be imprisoned for a few days. When she got the answer she wanted, she would be set free. Moreover, with this little princess in her hands, the Nine-Tailed Fox clan would be cautious. I won't believe you. Humph, if you want to kill me, do whatever you want. In any case, once I die, my ancestor and mother will know. Then you won't be able to escape. Baijishi crossed her arms and straightened her neck. She pouted and shouted coldly. Oh, is that so? Nine Nether smiled playfully. Suddenly, black flames curled around her jade-like hand. Then, step by step, she approached Baijishi. Little girl, you're crying too early. Chapter 564. You don't come over? I'm telling you, I'm very powerful. Don't force me to make a move, or I'll kill you. Bai Jishi's body trembled as if she felt the terrifying heat contained in the black flames. Even her voice was trembling. However, her threat was more of a panic, which made the smile on Nine Nether's face even more obvious. If not for the fact that the princess of the Nine-Tail clan was the only living demon related to the sacred sect, Nine Nether would not have the heart to attack this cute little thing. However, this matter was of great importance and could even affect the young master's conquest of the entire Xingzhou. Therefore, she decided to make this little girl suffer. Nine Nether's eyes were cold, and the seal in her hand suddenly changed. A wisp of death flame floated in the air, burning the entire space to pieces. No! Lord Ling Xiao, save me! Instinctively, Bai Jishi called out Ling Xiao's name. Her eyes were already closed. Behind her, 9 white tails appeared out of thin air and wrapped around her body. How could she not feel the terrifying aura on Nine Nether's body? And her life outlaw was imprisoned. It seemed that she could only sit and wait for her death. At the last moment of her life, Bai Jishi seemed to see a figure that was not very tall, but very tall and straight, falling from the sky and blocking in front of her, blocking all the tribulations. Time passed slowly, but the pain she imagined did not appear. Bai Jishi opened her eyes in a daze, only to see the girl in black looking at her in surprise. The black flames that were originally lingering around the world had dissipated completely. How could it be? Could it be that Lord Ling Xiao was already so terrifying? Just by saying his real name, he could make demons fear him, and the disaster would disappear? You know the young master? Nine Nether frowned slightly and looked at the silly little girl in front of her with some surprise. When Ling Xiao met Bai Jishi in the lower world, Nine Nether was only a remnant soul and was kept in the spirit treasure. Therefore, she had never seen this unruly little demon. Therefore, Nine Nether was also full of doubts. The young master had never been to the northern border? How did this little girl know the young master? You know Lord Ling Xiao, too? Bai Jishi's pink eyes widened as she poked her head out of the 9 foxtails and looked at Nine Nether in confusion. I am young master's servant. Who are you? I am Bai Jishi. You've never heard of my name? That shouldn't be the case, right? Young master must have mentioned me to you, right? Tell me, where's the young master now? No, take me to him. I have something important to tell him. Hearing this, Bai Jishi's face flashed with excitement. Young master's servant? Isn't that my future servant? Aya, this is so embarrassing. I was almost scared to tears by a servant. If the Lord Ling Xiao knew about this, he would definitely laugh at me. Looking at the young girl whose face was sometimes pale and sometimes rosy, Nine Nether's eyes moved slightly. For some reason, she recalled the scene when she ran into Ling Xiao's hall naked, when she had reconstructed her body. Inexplicably, he suddenly felt a little flustered. What's the matter? Tell me. I'll pass it on to the young master. How can that be? This is very important. My big sister said that no one else can know about it. Bai Jishi snorted coldly with a touch of arrogance on her small face. Big sister? Nine Nether's eyes narrowed slightly as hundreds of thoughts ran through her mind. In the end, she did not dare to hesitate. She took out the divine sound transmission talisman that Ling Xiao had given her and handed it to Bai Jishi. She had never used this talisman. Instead, she kept it with her as a memento. With the talisman, she felt that the young master was by her side. This gave her more motivation. Now that Nine Nether's realm had recovered to the first stage of the Divine Emperor realm, she still could not remember the incomplete part of her memory. Perhaps Bai Jiro was the key to her complete awakening. Since this person was related to the saint, the young master would definitely be interested. Lord Ling Xiao. Bai Jishi took the talisman and immediately poured her spiritual energy into it as she shouted happily. However, there was no reply from the other side of the talisman. This made Nine Nether and Bai Jishi's expressions turn serious, especially the former. The divine emissary of the saint had gone to the 4 borders for unknown reasons. Nine Nether knew about Ling Xiao's ambition. Once he was exposed, he would be doomed eternally. You are Bai Jishi? Suddenly, a golden light overflowed from the talisman, and a deep, familiar voice sounded. The worries in the two women's eyes were swept away and turned into surprise. Young master, it's me. Did you miss me? Originally, Bai Jishi was eccentric and liked to pretend to be mature. But now, she was tortured by longing for Ling Xiao all day long. In her heart, she loved Ling Xiao to the bone. When she heard his voice, her face turned red with excitement. Young master still remembers me. Although we have not seen each other for several months, young master still recognized my voice immediately. Sob. Why is this talisman in your hands? Where is Nine Nether? Young master. Beside him, Nine Nether's lips curled into a smile, even though Ling Xiao's tone was indifferent. But, for some reason, she could feel a trace of concern in his voice. Oh, how did the two of you get together? Did you miss me? Seeing that Ling Xiao actually asked about Nine Nether, Bai Jishi's fair and beautiful little face immediately showed a trace of resentment. Her little mouth pouted and puffed up into a little meat bun. She was obviously angry. What's the matter? If there's nothing, I'm hanging up. Hanging up? Bai Jishi was stunned. Young master, there's something. After being angry for less than 3 seconds, Bai Jishi's little face showed a trace of grievance again. Young master said so coldly and arrogantly. But being cold and arrogant requires capital. As expected of you, my Lord Ling Xiao. Young master, do you still remember when we came down to the lower realm? Wait a moment. Bai Jishi's pink eyes flashed with a trace of vigilance. Then, she turned around and walked away before whispering, That nephew of mine, Yifan. Yes, what's wrong? My eldest sister asked me to come down to the lower realm and kill him. She said that this matter concerns the fate of our nine-tailed tribe. Young master, I want to ask you, he's dead. You don't have to trouble yourself. Huh? Oh, young master, are you in the eastern border? I want to go and find you. Hearing this, not only did Bai Jishi not feel a trace of disappointment, the smile between her brows became even more brilliant. Yifan's death had nothing to do with her. Even if he's dead, it would save her a lot of trouble. Then, wouldn't she be able to follow Lord Ling Xiao legitimately? I'm not here. I still have things to do. When I'm done, I'll come and find you. After saying this, Ling Xiao did not give Bai Jishi a chance to speak. The talisman instantly turned into ashes and dissipated before her eyes. Bai Jishi stared blankly at the ashes in her hand. Her pink eyes revealed a trace of deep disappointment. You're called Nine Nether, right? Lord Ling Xiao told me to follow you. He also said that you'll be my servant in the future. You have to listen to everything I say. Bai Jishi snorted coldly. She stomped her feet and turned to look at Nine Nether. It was impossible to go back to the tribe. Yifan was dead. Since she had nothing to do, why not play around in the northern border? With this servant by her side, she might be able to see young master one day. Oh, Nine Nether raised her eyebrows slightly. The corners of her mouth curled into an inexplicable smile. Originally, she was worried that the Nine Nether Mountain would be targeted by other demon kings as it grew stronger day by day. But now, with this little girl, everything was much simpler. Moreover, from Bai Jishi's eyes, she could see a trace of disappointment and resentment that could not be concealed. It seemed that young master did not care much about this little girl, but it seemed that this little girl was deeply in love with young master. In that case, it was not impossible for them to cooperate. Chapter 565. Inside the realm, Ling Xiao looked at the ancient green token in his hand. His eyes suddenly turned gloomy. Just a moment ago, a system notification sounded in his soul sea. Chu Qiancheng's Dao heart was shattered, and he fell into the demonic path. Not only did his providence not decrease, it increased by 500. Obviously, he must have heard about Yuan Yao's death. But his Dao heart was shattered. How would his providence increase? Interesting. The saber maniac has no woman in his heart. Is he starting to enter the divine path? As for Bai Jishi, Ling Xiao did not hear the system notification that she had completely surrendered. It could only mean that she had not fallen deep enough. No matter. Since she had already fallen deeply in love with him, she would be able to conquer herself if she was given some time. After all, feelings were things that were too easy to obtain. They would not be cherished. Only after going through hardships and pain could one suddenly see the light at the end of the tunnel. It was unforgettable. As for Yi Fan, to be honest, Ling Xiao did not expect that the eldest princess of the Fox clan would be so decisive to send Bai Jishi to the lower realm to kill him, killing her own son. This Baijiro was ruthless. Could it be that the person who went to the 4th level of the ancient pagoda and took the demonic creature away was her? Or maybe she did this because she did not want this mysterious pagoda to fall into the hands of others? For example, the divine master of the holy sect? Ling Zhao's lips curled into a smile. His figure suddenly disappeared. At this moment, he could feel that the spies he sent out earlier were rushing towards Han Qingqiu. Some leaks had finished their mission. It was time to harvest them. In front of an ancient forest in the depths of the cold moon immortal world, Han Qingqiu and a group of Western Borders prodigies stood in front of the forest. They coldly looked at a huge palace in the distance. In just 2 days, bad news came from the immortal world. Princess Yuan Yao and her followers were killed by a demonic creature. Moreover, the most inconceivable thing was that the demonic creature who killed her was the Western Borders evildoer, Imoya, who was known for his gentleness and integrity. This matter was strange, but it was also inexplicably convincing. After all, the person who spread the rumor was Mo Wuya, who had comprehended the holy words. Otherwise, why did you think I spared him? Give him a taste of his own medicine. All of a sudden, demonic traces appeared in the immortals world, and many heavenly talents of the western frontier were killed. However, Han Qingqiu was not too surprised by this. She knew that Ling Xiao didn't have a good impression of Yuan Yao. Since this Mo Wuya was a devil, he was most likely young master's servant. She just couldn't understand why young master could easily find an excuse to kill Yuan Yao in Cold Moon Immortal Palace. But why did he have to make such an unnecessary move? Why did he have to play with her feelings first before letting someone else do it? Suddenly, Han Qingqiu felt that this young master might have some special fetishes. Meanwhile, Yuan Yao, in the depths of the immortal world, in front of a pitch-black mountain, Chu Tianqing roared, his body brimming with killing intent. However, the strange thing was that Mo Wuya was standing not far away from him. His body was covered in wounds, but his eyes were faintly flickering with coldness. That's about it. Brother Chu, I'm working for him now to gain his trust. But you have to believe me. I'm sincere to Yuan Yao. How could I hurt her? You've seen that man's strength. It's hard for me to kill him alone. So, I'm listening to his orders now to gain his trust. When the time comes, I'll trick him into coming to this ruin. Brother Chu, Mo wanted to say something, but stopped, his expression sorrowful. Of course, with his low status, he wouldn't dare to betray Ling Xiao so easily. But yesterday, he ran into Chu Tianqing by chance and was chased by this bastard all the way. No matter how much he called out to Ling Xiao, he didn't get any response. Helpless, Mo could only tell the truth. Since he was going to die anyway, why not take a gamble? He believed that Ling Xiao must have placed some kind of spell in his soul, that could easily end his life. But he was gambling. He was gambling that Ling Xiao couldn't find out what he was doing. In the end, Mo Wuya's gamble paid off. His killing intent towards Ling Xiao didn't seem to be fake. That guy was a devil, and he had to bear the name of a devil himself. With Ling Xiao's ruthlessness, he would most likely become a scapegoat when the time came. After all, only a dead man couldn't argue. So, Mo Wuya decided to work with Chu Tianqing to kill Ling Xiao. Mo Wuya, you cowardly thing, when Yuan Yao was killed, where were you? How can I believe you? Chu Tianqing's eyes flashed red, but his voice was inexplicably soft. Even the aura on his body was emitting a cold and evil aura. F***CK. This guy can't be a devil too, right? Mo Wuya's body trembled. A chill ran down his spine. I swear on my Tao heart. If I'm lying, then let my body and soul be destroyed so that I can't enter the reincarnation cycle. Brother Chu, Ling Xiao killed a kind person like Yao Er. I'm afraid he won't let us go. If we don't kill him, we'll all die. Mo Wuya roared. But Chu Tianqing shook his head. I alone am enough to kill him. So you'd better. Brother Chu, that Ling Xiao has a helper. It's a great devil. His cultivation isn't something you and I can fight against. I have a way to get him to come here alone. If I'm lying to you, my Dao heart will be destroyed, and I'll be consigned to eternal damnation. Seeing Chu Tianqing step forward, Mo Wuya was so scared that he almost turned around and ran away. Helper, Chu Tianqing frowned. His saber intent suddenly froze. To be honest, he didn't care about a mere Ling Xiao. After all, the saber art that Elder Dao taught him was a supreme ability that could restrain the latter's saber intent. But if he had a strong follower, it would be troublesome for him to deal with him alone. That's right. I suspect that Ling Xiao has a twin brother who looks just like him. Brother Chu, if we work together, nothing will go wrong. Otherwise, if he defeats us one by one, we won't have the chance to leave the immortal world. Mo Wuya took a deep breath and dispersed his spiritual energy. Forget it. If you don't believe me, then kill me now. I'll die sooner or later anyway. If I didn't want to take revenge for Yao, I would have gone down to accompany her. Why would I want to slander myself and live in this world? You, Chu Tianqing's expression changed several times. In the end, he stood in front of Mo Wuya and stared into his eyes. A Dao heart oath was the most ruthless oath one could make in the cultivation world. The foundation of cultivation was one's heart. No one would easily swear a Dao heart oath. Otherwise, if they went against it, they would suffer a backlash from their heart demons. The light consequence would be a drop in cultivation. The heavy consequence would be death. Therefore, Chu Tianqing had already believed Mo Wuya's words. I hope you can really do it. Otherwise, even if I die, I won't let you go. In the end, Chu Tianqing snorted coldly and turned around to walk toward the demonic ruins behind him. I'll give you one day to bring Ling Xiao here. I will personally take revenge for Yao in this palace. He had already explored this place. One of the demonic weapons was a blood-colored saber. In Chu Tianqing's eyes, the blood-colored saber was too evil, and there was a risk of him falling into a demonic state. Therefore, he hesitated and didn't refine it. Although he hated Ling Xiao, he didn't want to become a demonic saber. But now, none of that was important. For Yao so what if he became a demon? Chapter 566. Only when Chu Tianqing entered the main hall did Mo Wuya let out a sigh of relief. Young Master Wuya, Han Qingqiu has arrived at an ancient forest to the east of the immortal world. In his hand, a divine sound transmission talisman flashed with golden light. In the next moment, a sinister glint flashed across Mo Wuya's eyes. He turned around and flew towards a certain direction of the immortal world. Since he wanted to scheme against Ling Xiao, he had to gain his trust first. Mo didn't know how this disciple of the divine envoy managed to deceive the divine envoy and obtain such honor. But he didn't dare to tell a third person about Ling Xiao's true identity, because Mo Wuya didn't know how many people in the immortal world were still Ling Xiao's servants. Yuan Yao was dead. More than half of the western border's geniuses had fallen. Apart from Chu Tianqing, who still had the title of a peerless genius, Han Qingqiu was the only one left who still had some strength. But Han Qingqiu was already seen as prey by Ling Xiao. If he rashly tried to rope her in, he would risk exposing himself. In fact, Mo Wuya had already thought of a countermeasure. He would only tell Ling Xiao that there was a ruin here. At that time, if Chu Tianqing could kill Ling Xiao in one fell swoop, then everyone would be happy. But if he died in Ling Xiao's hands, it wouldn't have anything to do with Mo Wuya. Even if Chu Tianqing told Ling Xiao everything, Mo Wuya could just say that the former's love for him turned into hatred and sowed discord. After all, the entire Cold Moon immortal world knew that he killed Yuan Yao. And Chu Tianqing's love for Yuan Yao was also known by everyone. It was normal for him to bite back before he died. Thinking of this, The last trace of hesitation in Mo Wuya's heart disappeared. As long as he could help Ling Xiao kill Han Qingqiu today, he would definitely gain the latter's trust. After all, if the news of him killing the Cold Palace's fairy spread, he would be consigned to eternal damnation. As for Ling Xiao's intentions, Mo Wuya had already guessed it. It was nothing more than testing his loyalty. He wanted to borrow a knife to kill him and make him bear the name of a devil. He wanted to conceal Ling Xiao's true identity. In the end, the latter would definitely attack him and destroy his corpse. However, it wouldn't be too early because he still needed someone to take the blame. At the very least, Boundless Mo felt that he should be safe before the Immortals ended. In this way, he still had time to think of a way to deal with this disciple of the Oracle. In the depths of the Immortals in the ancient forest, Han Qingqiu and the others looked at the dilapidated ancient palace with joy in their eyes. However, unlike the other sky prides, Han Qingqiu's anticipation did not seem to come from her heart. It was as if the secret to becoming an immortal in the immortal world was not very attractive to her. Han Xinzi, let's enter the palace. In the crowd, there were already some geniuses who could not wait. Han Qingqiu nodded indifferently as she walked away. Just as everyone was about to walk towards the palace, the sound of wind breaking suddenly came from the distant sky. Hearing the voice, everyone was stunned. When they raised their heads, they saw several black-clothed figures suddenly appearing above the ancient forest. Han Qingqiu had never seen most of them before. Of course, there were hundreds of sky prides in the Immortals world this time. Even she could not recognize all of them. However, there were some familiar faces among them. For example, Mo Wuya of the head office. It's Mo Wuya. Everyone's eyes narrowed slightly as spiritual light surged around them. In the past few days, rumors about this western border monstrous genius had been rampant. Some said that he was a demon who hid his identity and sneaked into the Immortals world to hunt down the sky prides of the western border. Others said that he was jealous that Lord Ling Xiao had stolen Yuan Yao's heart. That was why he killed the kind-hearted princess of Daiyuan. But no matter what, the matter of Mo Wuya killing Yuan Yao was already known to everyone. Bastard. He even killed a kind-hearted person like Princess Yuan Yao. This Mo Wuya was simply insane. However, it was still inexplicable. Looking at him, many people had a trace of fear in their eyes. To be able to be on par with Chu Tianqing and be ranked first in the western border, one could imagine how powerful this person's cultivation was. In fact, in many people's eyes, no one in the secret realm was a match for this person except for Ling Xiao. Haha, Fairy Han, I've been looking for you so hard. Mo Wuya stood on top of an ancient tree and coldly looked down at the sky prides of the western border below. At this moment, he still had a gentle smile on his face. Although his purple robe was somewhat tattered, it could not hide his brilliance. Looking at him, everyone would unconsciously have a good impression of him. He had nothing to do with demons at all. Mo Wuya, why are you looking for me? Han Qingqiu's expression was indifferent, but there was a trace of doubt. In her eyes, this Mo Wuya was most likely Ling Xiao's servant. If that was the case, why was he looking for her? Haha, of course I want to chat with you about life. Mo Wuya smiled faintly, but his demonic aura was gradually emitting from his body. Ling Xiao stole my true love. I heard that you have a close relationship with him. I wanted to have his lover stolen. What? To be honest, Han Qingqiu was a little surprised at this moment. First of all, she and Ling Xiao could not be considered partners, let alone true love. Although the two had a deep relationship, it was not what Han Qingqiu wanted. It was more like a transaction. Second of all, this Mo Wuya was not her master's servant, but another demon? How could this be? Since when were there so many evil cultivators in the western frontier? But soon, Han Qingqiu understood. No wonder Mo Wuya would kill Yuan Yao for no reason. When they first came to the mountain, the two of them were indeed a pair like immortals. But later, when Ling Xiao appeared and seduced Yuan Yao, the girl's thoughts were stirred. Mo Wuya had endured for many days, not daring to make a move in the cold moon immortal palace. So, when they entered the secret territory, He wanted to kill Yuan Yao and Ling Xiao one by one. Everything seemed logical, but where did his confidence come from? That day, Ling Xiao defeated Chu Tianqing in 3 moves, shocking the entire western border. Could it be that this Mo Wu Ye was also hiding his strength? Suddenly, Han Qingqiu thought of all the rumors about this Mo Wu Ye. His origin was mysterious, and no one knew his master. Yet, everyone believed that he was terrifyingly powerful. In fact, all those who had seen him in action had died. Ling Xiao did not believe such words because he could see Mo Wu Ye's origin with one look. Although Han Qingqiu's identity was special, it was not to the point of cheating. On top of that, Mo Wu Ye's Dao laws were surging, and the spiritual aura around him was vast and mighty. This gave him a little more confidence when he spoke. If this Mo Wu Ye did not comprehend the Tao of holy words and use it to trick others, why do you think I, Ling Xiao, chose him to be the supporting male lead in this show? Because he knows how to lick? F***CK. The Tao of holy words revealed the Tao, and the heavens followed. Even if it was a lie, it would be easy to believe it when it came from Mo Wu Ye's mouth. Thinking about it this way, the Tao of holy words was actually pretty good. Chapter 567. Han Xianzi, what do you think? Are you going to follow me obediently, or do you want me to tie you up? Mo Wu Ye's eyes were filled with coldness. Beside him, those black-robed young men also had a sinister look on their faces. Mo Wu Ye, aren't you being too presumptuous? How dare you do this in broad daylight? One of the Western Border's geniuses shouted angrily as he stood in front of Han Qingqiu, his face filled with hatred. This is such a great opportunity to act tough. What are you guys still hesitating for? Han Qingqiu, the most famous white moonlight in the Western Border, obtained, but before he could finish his sentence, the space in front of him trembled. A biting cold intent rose from the bottom of his feet. A terrifying divine aura suddenly burst out. Before that arrogant Western Border's genius could react, a black shadow flashed past him like a gust of wind. After that, everyone was dumbstruck when they saw the young man's body sway and suddenly fall to the ground. Even before the arrogance on his face disappeared, the black shadow had already returned to the forest. Suddenly, Han Qingqiu understood where Mo Wu Ye got his confidence from to act so presumptuously. Right now, there were 7 of his followers standing beside him. If each of them had a strange movement technique like that black-robed young man, perhaps Ling Xiao was indeed strong. Even Han Qingqiu did not know the true strength of this young man. But in this immortal world, everyone's cultivation was suppressed to the divine general realm. Perhaps this was the reason why Mo Wu Ye could act so brazenly. Even so, Han Qingqiu still did not think that Mo Wu Ye and his followers were a match for that devil. But it seemed like they were more than enough to deal with her. What a joke. These people were the secret guards that Ling Xiao had trained in his domain. Although he had sent most of his secret guards to the southern border, he still left a few behind in case they were useful. These people had obtained the overlapping Shadow's inheritance. Their combat strength might not be considered strong, but at the divine general realm, their movement techniques and illusions were enough to give them a headache. Moreover, they had all been given divine tools and pills by Ling Xiao to give Han Qingqiu some pressure. In order to capture the fairy's heart, you don't even want to pay the price. You want peaches. Unrelated people, it's not too late to leave now. Mo Wu Ye stood proudly in front of everyone, coldly looking at them. He wasn't a real demon, so the fewer people he killed, the fewer sins he would have to bear. Han Qingqiu must die today because he wanted to use her life to exchange for his own. But to be able to stand here, which one of them didn't have a background? Boundless Mo didn't want to end up as the true demon that killed people like flies. Don't think that we're afraid of you, Mo Wu Ye. We cultivators take on the responsibility of slaying devils. You have 10 people, and we have more than 20. If we really fight, another righteous prodigy shouted coldly. However, this time, his body was already surging with spiritual light. He was clearly prepared to be assassinated. The bird that pokes its head out will be shot. This was the truth of the world. That's why that guy died just now. But the bird that stuck its head out was already dead. It wouldn't be wrong for me to pretend a little and try to win the fairy's favor, right? Whoosh. However, just as he finished speaking, there was a sudden burst of wind breaking sound around him. The 20 or so Western border prodigies that were gathered around Han, Qing, Xiu instantly turned into afterimages and disappeared without a trace. I'm just a minor character. Don't talk about acting cool. If I stay here for too long, I might die at any time. Besides, if I let you act cool, what's the main character going to do later? Let's watch you act cool. Could it be that a spiritual treasure has appeared? Seeing this, the young man who opened his mouth earlier suddenly had a look of doubt on his face. Then, he flew into the distance as if nothing had happened. Fairy Han, have you thought about it? If you cooperate with me, it will only hurt for a while. If you don't, I'm afraid you'll be in pain for a long time. Mo Weia laughed sinisterly. Whoosh. But just as he finished speaking, the black figures in front of the ancient forest suddenly disappeared and chased after the group. All of a sudden, the wind in the ancient forest became a little chilly. Mo Weia, I'd like to see how strong you, the Western border prodigy, are today. From the beginning to the end, Han Qingqiu's expression did not change much. Although she had only cultivated for 20 years, her temperament was not comparable to those ordinary young men. Life and death were no different to Han Qingqiu. However, she could not die before she took her revenge. Although Ling Xiao and Marshal Aunt Yu Zhao's whereabouts were unknown, they would definitely rush over when they heard the commotion. Han Qingqiu did not know why she trusted Ling Xiao. She believed that he would not ignore her life and death. But it was like an instinct. Buzz. A terrifying spiritual aura quietly surged in the sky above the ancient forest. Around Han Qingqiu's body, the power of Taoist principles formed into chains that were mysterious and unpredictable. The laws of fire and lightning were the most domineering and yang forces in the world. Moreover, this fairy Han used Taoist principles were born together with her body. After being deduced by the wordless heavenly book, her Taoist principles were close to the realm of greater mastery. Dark clouds began to gather in the sky. Patches of the ancient forest withered and collapsed. Even the ground under Han Qingqiu's feet seemed to be unable to withstand such heavenly might. Countless cracks appeared on it. Not far away, Mo Weia looked at the girl who had entered a state of mind and swallowed hard. Holy shit, what happened to the promised helper? What happened to everyone working together? Suddenly, Mo Weia raised his head and looked at the empty ancient forest. He swallowed hard. At this moment, he even suspected that Ling Xiao wanted to use this fairy Hanyu to kill him. Everyone would kill each other, and in the end, he would reap the benefits and obtain the secret of immortal ascension. Wait a minute. Countless thoughts ran through Mo Weia's mind, but his face remained calm and collected. He was thinking if he told Han Qingqiu that it was Ling Xiao who sent him to kill her. Would this fairy Hanyu believe him? It seems like I'm going to die. What can I do? Lord Ling Xiao, I did not mean to betray you. What choice do I have? I'm just a piece of trash. Every second I live is a gain. Fairy Hanyu, buzz. Just as Mo Weia stretched out his hand to stop Han Qingqiu, several ear-piercing buzzing sounds came from the sky. The several black-robed figures who were originally leaving tore through the void and turned into thousands of afterimages as they pounced towards Han Qingqiu. The shocking fluctuation instantly shattered the blue sky. In the void, the cold light was piercingly cold, forming a chain. It was like the Milky Way pouring down from the 9 heavens, causing a chill to rise from the bottom of one's heart. The corner of Mo Weia's eyes twitched. His outstretched hand suddenly emitted a monstrous golden light. Even the panic in his eyes had turned into a look of resentment. Han Qingqiu, since you're courting death, I'll fulfill your wish. Boom! Mo Weia's figure suddenly shot out. A terrifying fluctuation of Tao laws surged out from his body, containing extreme, killing intent. The sky trembled as Tao sounds rang out. At this moment, he was the most beautiful child in this world. That was close. I was almost exposed. Chapter 568. Demonic chi churned in the void for thousands of miles, forming long clouds that covered the entire sky. Deep within the demonic clouds, a figure stood with his hands behind his back, coldly looking at the people fighting below. Ling Xiao did not plan to let go of anyone in the entire realm except for Han Qingxiu. He did not plant a seal on Mo Wuya to prevent it from affecting his performance. As for whether or not this fellow would betray him, Ling Xiao did not have the slightest concern. He had sent people to spy on Han Qingxiu, so Mo Wuya had no chance to get close to her. No matter who Mo Wuya teamed up with, the outcome would be the same. Moreover, looking at the wounds on his body, it was obvious that this guy had met Chu Tianqing before. Interesting. Even a leak has learned to use his brain. Buzz. Cold light fell from the sky like stars from outer space, enveloping Han Qingxiu. In terms of strength, these 9 shadow guards might not be as strong as Han Qingxiu. Mo Wuya's use was limited to his ventriloquism. In other words, Ling Xiao gave him this important task only because he liked the power of his holy words. With his participation, Han Qingxiu would believe that this assassination was caused by the hatred in Mo Wuya's heart. Otherwise, with Han Qingxiu's temperament, she would be suspicious. However, the real threat to her life was the killing path set up by the 9 shadow guards. Xiang was an ancient demon. Although he was suppressed in the Glaze ancient pagoda and his cultivation was not there, his methods were not something an ordinary divine king could compare with. As for the secret guards, they were proficient in assassination, concealment, and joint-killing techniques. At this moment, spiritual light flowed around the 9 shadow guards. They blocked Han Qingxiu's path of retreat from 9 different directions. However, the strange thing was that the 9 shadow guards seemed to be one person. Endless spiritual light gathered in one place, turning into a cold light that tore through the sky. There seemed to be demonic light disappearing and divine shadows floating. The void instantly cracked, and spatial cracks spread out one after another. The terrifying killing intent was as vast and mighty as the heavens, imprisoning the entire world within it. Han Qingxiu's face turned serious. She was even more certain that this was Mo Wuya's trump card. Every single one of the 9 demons were only 3rd-grade divine generals. Although their movement techniques were strange, they weren't strong enough to fight against Han Qingxiu. But when the 9 of them joined forces, their might caused Han Qingxiu to panic. Furthermore, this attack was enough to threaten a deity overlord. Boom! Han Qingxiu's expression turned solemn. Her Tao will soared into the sky. Behind her, there seemed to be an ethereal, celestial shadow that appeared between heaven and earth. Facing the full force of the 9 shadow guards, Han Qingxiu's eyes flashed with a trace of seriousness. In the next moment, a terrifying spiritual aura erupted. Like a falling meteor, it was dazzling and resplendent, instantly shattering the celestial shadow outside her body. As for Han Qingxiu's figure, she was knocked back dozens of feet. A trace of blood flowed out from the corner of her mouth. Han Qingxiu, today, you will definitely die. Mo Wuya sneered. Golden light flowed from his palms as he slammed them down on Han Qingxiu's head. Boom! The moonlight rose and turned into an ancient square seal, blocking Mo Wuya's path. However, before Han Qingxiu could relax, the piercing sound of wind breaking came from all directions. You still dare to resist? Seeing this, Mo Wuya's cold smile deepened. The hesitation in his heart dissipated instantly. On the golden palms, runes were densely packed. They turned into hundreds of feet large, and together with the 9 shadow guards, they attacked Han Qingxiu. Bzzz. The blue sky shattered. Within 100 miles, dark clouds gathered and spiritual energy surged. Am I really going to die here? A trace of sadness flashed across Han Qingxiu's face. Her beautiful eyes were filled with determination. Around her body, flames and lightning intertwined to form chain. The chain flashed with divine light and was overflowing with Taoist rhyme. Even so, when the 9 Shadow Guards' attack landed, her figure was still knocked back. Blood spurted out of her mouth and dyed the front of her green robe red. It was like a blooming flower. Beep! The destined woman is in despair. Congratulations to the host for plundering 500 luck points and 5,000 villain points. Above the void, Ling Xiao calmly looked at the beautiful figure falling from the sky. The corner of his lips curled into a smile. It's about time. As for Han Qingqiu, the moment Ling Xiao guessed her identity, he had already decided her fate. Plundering her luck now was just making the best use of it. Whether she surrendered or not, there was not much difference in her outcome. The only thing that Ling Xiao was looking forward to was if he could win her heart. Perhaps then, he could try to open the complete blood realm of the Sky Demon's pupil. Fairy Han, I'm sorry to offend you. Mo Wuya smiled faintly. His figure floated in the air and descended from the sky. On the golden palms, Taoist rhyme was overflowing. It revealed an aura that could destroy eternity. Even though Mo Wuya's actual combat strength was weak when it came to acting tough, he was really good at it. The golden palms were like mountains. They crushed the space above Han Qingqiu's head layer by layer. Facing this terrifying attack, Han Qingqiu's eyes were filled with despair. Right now, she was already an arrow at the end of its flight. The Taoist rhyme on her body was shattered, and her spiritual energy was gone. She could not dodge this attack. She could not even block it. Boom! Boom! Countless rays of golden light sprinkled down, dyeing the entire ancient forest red. Just as Han Qingqiu's eyes were filled with despair and her heart was filled with sorrow, a ripple suddenly appeared in front of her. In the next instant, a white-robed figure tore through the air. He calmly raised his head and looked at Mo Wuya, who was descending from the sky. There was not the slightest ripple in his eyes. His eyes were filled with gentleness. His white robe was otherworldly. Although his body was not majestic, he was tall and slender. Young master, to be honest, at this moment, Han Qingqiu's heart was in a trance. That white-robed figure was like the sun. It shone into her heart for the first time. It was at her most desperate moment. From the day she decided to walk on the path of revenge, she was destined to become the enemy of the entire Xingzhou. She abandoned her original body and turned into a human. She hid in the cold Moon Immortal Palace for 20 years. She was not afraid of death. She just did not want to die so unwillingly. And the young man before her seemed to have given her hope once again. When they first met, he killed the divine messenger and looked down on the world. He made Han Qingqiu see an ally who dared to go against the Holy Church. Whether he was a devil or an immortal, Han Qingqiu had never truly cared. The world had never shown her kindness. Why should she repay it with the lives of the world? So what if she slaughtered the entire world? In the end, there was only one person in her heart. And today, when she was facing death and her heart was filled with despair, it was this cold-blooded and cruel young man who played with the world that stood in front of her. Suddenly, an emotion that she had never felt before appeared in Han Qingqiu's heart. This emotion made her feel at ease and also somewhat tired. Beep. The destined woman is touched. Congratulations to the host for obtaining 500 luck points and 5,000 villain points. Ling Zhao's lips curled up into a smile. He coldly looked at Mo Wuya, whose expression had changed. Suddenly, lightning shot up into the sky from his body. How dare you hurt my woman with such insignificant skills? Boom! The vast divine might almost overturn the heavens. Endless silver light instantly covered all the colors in the world. However, what shocked Han Qingqiu was not the Wang Yang ocean-like vigorous Tao Law energy on the young man's body. It was that sentence, my woman. Chapter 569. Young master? Mo Wuya hovered in midair, his heart in a mess. He had been acting tough for 10 years, but now he suddenly felt like he was done for. Was the young master planning to put on a show of a hero saving a damsel in distress? But there was a hero and a damsel in distress. What kind of character was he? Hiss. Strangely, Moya felt a chill run down his spine. Beep. The Chosen One's Tao heart is unstable. I'm afraid he's about to die. Congratulations, host, for plundering 500 luck points and 5,000 villain points. Buzz. However, Moya had used almost all of his strength in that attack. It was too late for him to stop now. Moreover, Ling Xiao wasn't here, so he could still think of other things. However, in front of Ling Xiao, he wouldn't dare to show any signs of disobedience, even if he was given 100 guts. Boundless golden light shone down from the sky like the setting sun, suppressing all eternity. Ling Xiao calmly extended his palm, clenched it into a fist, and smashed it toward the sky. 100-meter-long lightning dragon instantly tore through space. It contained the power to destroy the heavens and earth as it charged toward the setting sun. With just one look, Moya felt a stabbing pain all over his body. 2 streams of tears flowed down his cheeks uncontrollably. I'm not crying. I'm not afraid. I'm just in pain from that silver light. Buzz. Gold and silver flashed continuously between heaven and earth. Divine elephant decrees rose and fell one after another. Taoist rhymes descended from the sky, surging forward magnificently. Divine sounds resounded throughout the immortal world like a huge bell, shaking everyone's hearts. However, the moment the golden sun and the lightning dragon collided, everyone was dumbfounded by what they saw. The seemingly heaven-shaking golden sun was instantly devoured by the lightning dragon. Thousands of miles of sky shattered like ice crystals. Then, the terrifying might of lightning exploded. Visible ripples of spiritual energy spread out in the sky like clouds. Before the first wave stopped, another wave rose, turning into a 1,000-meter-long silver sea that swept out in all directions. Moya's figure was instantly covered by the lightning, and his aura disappeared completely. No, beep. The Tao heart of the child of destiny has been shattered, and despair has arisen in his heart. Congratulations to host for plundering 500 luck points and 5,000 villain points. From the beginning to the end, Ling Xiao's face didn't show the slightest trace of emotion. He just calmly looked up at the sky. Behind him, Han Qingqiu had a complicated expression on her face. But in the end, she was more touched and less arrogant. She didn't know much about relationships, but when she saw Ling Xiao, or even just by standing next to him, Han Qingqiu could clearly feel a strange emotion spreading through her. It was very peaceful and relaxed. There was no need to worry about life and death, and there was no need to worry about the future. As long as he was here, all the tribulations in this world would be easily resolved. In these 20 years, Han Qingqiu had enjoyed unparalleled glory. The Fairy of the Cold Palace was the #1 beauty of the Western frontier. Anyone who saw her would have to bow and flatter her. But at the same time, for the revenge in her heart, although Han Qingqiu couldn't be said to be very careful, she was still very careful. It wasn't until she met Ling Xiao that she realized that being a tool was actually quite comfortable. As long as she acted according to her master's instructions, she didn't need to plan anything else. Beep. The destined woman's thoughts have been sublimated. She has the intention to submit. Congratulations to the host for obtaining 500 luck points and 5,000 villain points. Hearing the notification from the system, Ling Xiao's eyes flashed with a trace of playfulness. No matter who it is, whoever dares to hurt you will die. Ling Xiao didn't turn around. Instead, he stood in front of Han Qingqiu and said without turning his head. At this time, his voice was filled with indifference and indifference. But inexplicably, it felt more real. Different from Su Yin and the others, this destined woman in front of him wasn't a human. So she probably didn't have a deep understanding of relationships. So, if he wanted to capture her, it could be said to be very simple. Obviously, Han Qingqiu had a blood feud hidden in her heart. And the stronger and more domineering Ling Xiao was, the happier she would be in her heart. Then, he would give her some attention and let her remember that she wasn't alone. In this way, why would he worry about the fairy not crying? Unknowingly, Han Qingqiu's eyes were wet. Was this the feeling of being protected by someone? In the past, people often said that the difference between immortals and demons was in the way they handled matters. Immortals were willing to bear one person for the common people. Demons were willing to slaughter the common people for one person. So it was true? Cough, cough. In the sky, the silver light gradually dimmed. A figure covered in blood appeared in the sky. At this time, all the bones in Mo Wuya's body had been shattered. His purple robe had turned into ashes, revealing a golden inner armor. But there wasn't much hatred on his face. Instead, there was a trace of joy. Young Master didn't kill me. With the young Master's methods just now, he could easily kill him. What did this mean? It meant that he didn't want to kill me yet. Beep. The destined child is grateful to the evil demon king. Congratulations to host for plundering 500 luck points and 5,000 evil points. Ling Xiao raised his head and looked at the battered and exhausted figure. Lightning flashed around him again. Again? It shouldn't be. Just now, young Master didn't even kill me. Why would he do this now? But what can I do? I also want to run now. But young Master didn't say anything. Do I dare to? Just as Mo Wuya's mind was trembling, a cold light pierced through the sky and headed straight for Ling Xiao. 9 guards appeared in the sky. Each of them held a cold blade that contained unparalleled sharpness. Young Master, be careful. Han Qingqiu's face froze, and she instinctively cried out. Ling Xiao was very strong, but this 9 devils movement technique could be said to be strange. Especially this sort of joint attack. Its might was even terrifying, and it faintly showed signs of being capable of destroying the world. No worries. But at this time, Ling Xiao's face was still calm. There was even a trace of a smile on his face. The combined attack of the 9 guards was comparable to a deity overlord. But to Ling Xiao, a deity overlord was nothing. He stretched out 2 fingers. There seemed to be divine runes on his fingertips. Surging sword intent spread out and slashed down towards the sky. Pucci, the attack that was originally terrifying in Han Qingqiu's eyes, was instantly shattered by Ling Xiao's finger. The 9 guards were also sent flying. Blood spurted out from their mouths. They were seriously injured by Ling Xiao's finger. Moreover, 2 of them lost their lives before they could even land on the ground. Run! The remaining 7 shouted. They turned around and fled towards the end of the ancient forest. Mo Wuya's eyes narrowed. He did not dare to hesitate. His figure also disappeared from the spot. Want to run? Ling Xiao sneered. He turned around and looked at Han Qingqiu. Your injuries are not light. Return to the realm first. Leave the rest to me. Young Master, be careful. Han Qingqiu pursed her red lips and gently nodded, especially the cold and domineering look on the young man's face. It made her feel a faint trace of fear. With a wave of his hand, strong enemies would be turned into ashes. That was probably a description of someone like her young master, right? Buzz. As Han Qingqiu's figure disappeared, Ling Xiao's face lit up with a smile. He took a step forward. His white robe fluttered as he chased after Mo Wuya and the others. Chapter 570. In the depths of the ancient forest, a ripple appeared in space. Shortly after, Mo Wuya and the 7 dark guards appeared. At this moment, there was a trace of lingering fear on Mo Wuya's face. Especially the death of the 2 shadow guards. It made him even more worried. Ling Xiao was ruthless and merciless. Sooner or later, he would be killed by Ling Xiao. As such, he could only make the first move to gain the upper hand. Buzz! The sound of Dao rang out. A white-robed figure descended from the sky and stood in front of everyone. Greetings, Lord! The 7 shadow guards bowed. Mo Wuya's eyes flashed with a hint of fear as he followed suit. To be honest, he was dumbfounded. The 7 of them had clearly seen their companions being killed. Did they not feel any sympathy for their companions? You guys did well today. Ling Xiao smiled faintly and gave Mo Wuya a deep look. Especially young Master Mo. You've worked hard. Using the death of the 2 shadow guards to add color to this performance was undoubtedly worth it. Furthermore, they were dark guards after all. How many dark guards he wanted to train was just a matter of word from Ling Xiao. Their biggest use was to cooperate with Ling Xiao to steal the fate of the destined person. If that was the case, so what if all of them died? I've said it before. What is the most important thing for a hero to save a damsel in distress? It's bleeding. Previously, I was forced to bleed myself. But now, since someone is willing to die, why should I bleed? Hee. It is Wu Ya's honor to work for Lord. The corner of Mo Wu Ya's eyes twitched. However, he still had a flattering smile on his face. Young master, when I was spreading rumors in the immortal world, I came across an ancient site. There was a clear, demonic aura there. I think there must be some great treasures there. However, the seal in the palace is still there. Are you trying to say that only one person can enter? Is that why you didn't go in and left it for me? Before Mo Wu Ya could finish his words, Ling Xiao suddenly smiled and nodded. An ant standing on the first floor. The so-called scheme was nothing but a self-deceiving performance. With Ling Xiao's experience, how could he not guess what Mo Wu Ya was thinking? The prerequisite for luring the enemy in was that you had to have the strength to contend with the enemy. Otherwise, it wouldn't be called scheming, it would be courting death. Gulp. Suddenly, Boundless Mo felt a chill rising from the bottom of his feet. In the blink of an eye, it reached the top of his head. Could it be that I was exposed? Beep! The destined child has the urge to pee and is panicking. Congratulations to host for plundering 200 luck points and 2,000 villain points. Young Master Mo's loyalty is admirable. Not bad. However, to Mo Wu Ya's surprise, Ling Xiao only smiled warmly at him. He even took out a pill and placed it in Mo Wu Ya's hand. Heal your injuries first. We'll talk about the rest later. Thank you, my lord. Mo Wu Ya's expression turned serious as he reached out to take the spirit pill. For some reason, he suddenly had an urge to betray them again. In particular, the indifference in Ling Xiao's eyes made him feel as if he had been seen through. Damn it, could it be because of the method he placed in my soul sea? My lord, don't you plan to take a look at the ancient ruins? Mo Wu Ya probed. However, Ling Xiao shook his head slightly. The fortune in the immortal world is not very useful to me. Hearing this, Mo Wu Ya's expression changed. He forced a smile and said, My lord, you're right. For someone as monstrous as you, fortune's spiritual treasures are just external objects. They're not worth mentioning. However, since it's young Master Mo's good intentions, of course I have to take a look. Ling Xiao grinned. There was a trace of mockery in his eyes. The reason why Mo Wu Ya wanted him to go to the ancient ruins so urgently was most likely because there was a trap. Even if that was the case, a few ants working together wanted to scheme against a true dragon. Childish. Preposterous. What a joke. Cough, 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 cough. My lord is righteous. You're so considerate of your subordinates. Wu Ya is truly moved. Mo Wu Ya almost spat out a mouthful of blood. Lord Ling Xiao, can't you finish your sentence in one go? My mentality is about to collapse because of you. Young Master Wu Ya, where is the ancient ruins? Ling Xiao suddenly turned his head and looked at Mo Wu Ya. A trace of joy flashed through the latter's eyes. It's about 100 miles west of here. My lord, I'll bring you there now. All right. Ling Xiao nodded. Mo Wu Ya's face immediately bloomed with a brilliant smile. He turned around and flew away. However, just as he was secretly pleased with himself, he suddenly heard several hurried sounds of wind breaking behind him. He saw the 7 guards and Ling Xiao flying together and appearing behind Mo Wu Ya. Did I not make myself clear enough? Mo Wu Ya suddenly stopped and looked at Ling Xiao. My lord, that ancient ruins can only noisy. Ling Xiao stretched out his hand and slapped Mo Wu Ya's face. The latter's body trembled and he saw stars. However, he swallowed the words he was about to say. Lead the way. Yes. Mo Wu Ya clenched his teeth. In the end, he didn't dare to hesitate. He lifted his leg and flew toward the ancient ruins. The 7 secret guards had terrifying means. This time, Brother Chu, I didn't mean to harm you. It's just that this demon doesn't listen to me. Soon, a tall mountain appeared in front of them. a black palace appeared at the top of the mountain. Everyone stopped moving. "My lord, we're here. It's this palace." "Eh? Why did the seal in the palace disappear? Did someone beat us to it?" Mo Wuya's expression turned cold. A trace of resentment appeared on his face. "Damn it. Someone actually dared to steal my lord's fortune. How audacious." "Oh." And then Ling Zhao's lips curled into a playful smile. He turned to look at Mo Wuya. If he didn't know about this guy's Dao energy, he might really think that he was angry. Then, Mo Wuya's expression turned cold. He looked at Ling Zhao in confusion. However, in the next instant, his eyes narrowed. "Don't tell me. You want me to enter the palace to kill someone? Go. Kill the person who stole the treasure. I'm guessing that he's still here." Ling Zhao's tone was cold. It contained a trace of irresistible majesty. Mo Wuya's body trembled violently. He didn't know what to do. "Me? Kill someone? My lord, you think too highly of me. Compared to you, I'm just a piece of trash. What if that person escapes? Don't worry. I'll guard this place. No one can escape." Ling Zhao shook his head. He wasn't afraid of the people in the palace. It was just that. Who knew what kind of tricks these two people had set up in the palace? No matter how conceited Ling Zhao was, he wouldn't dare to joke around with his life, especially when facing a destined person. He had to be extra careful. At this moment, he could sense that Chu Tiancheng was in the palace. As such, it was best for Mo Wuya to enter the palace to test things out. Gulp. Suddenly, tears appeared in Mo Wuya's eyes. After acting tough for 10 years, it was about to come to an end. Chapter 571. Master, how about you? I'll go. Seeing Ling Zhao's gloomy expression, Mo Wuya no longer dared to hesitate. His figure flashed, and he instantly appeared in front of the main hall. At this time, a spirit armor suddenly appeared in his hand. Its grade wasn't high and was only a middle-grade divine artifact, but he still put on. The person inside, listen up. I am Mo Wuya. I advise you not to resist. Lord Ling Zhao has already surrounded this main hall with his men. Then, under Ling Zhao's ridiculing gaze, Mo Wuya actually shouted at the top of his lungs toward the main hall. Heaven and earth suddenly quieted down, and a faint cold wind blew. There was no response from the main hall. In the end, Mo Wuya could only grit his teeth and walk forward. I'm coming in. I, Mo Wuya, am coming in. Even now, this person of destiny was still angrily shouting, as if he was afraid that others wouldn't know that he was going to enter the main hall. Seeing this scene, the smile in Ling Zhao's eyes became even more obvious. As expected, there was something wrong with this guy. Boom! The main door of the ancient hall suddenly opened. A wave of devil intent visible to the naked eye rushed forward, causing Mo Wuya's face to instantly turn pale. This devil aura was so strong. Perhaps there really was a devil inside. That Chu Tiancheng wouldn't have died inside, right? However, the moment Mo Wuya stepped into the main hall, his eyes suddenly narrowed. At this time, in the middle of the main hall, a black-clothed figure was sitting on a stone chair. Who else could it be but Chu Tiancheng? But the current Chu Tiancheng didn't have a trace of spiritual aura around him. Instead, there was a biting, cold devil aura lingering around him. Just very inexplicably, Mo Wuya's feet trembled and he almost fell to the ground. This Chu Tiancheng was also a devil? Could it be that he and Ling Zhao were acting together to play him? His prophecy had come true. Back then, at the peak of Mount Han, he had said that Chu Tiancheng's saber contained devil intent. He didn't expect. He was careless. Beep. The person of destiny felt remorse and admitted that he was courting death. Congratulations to the host for plundering 500 luck points and 5,000 villain points. Brother Chu, how are you? At this point, there was no way out for Mo Wuya. Regardless of whether Chu Tiancheng was related to Ling Zhao or not, it seemed like he would be the unlucky one. In particular, the scarlet color in Chu Tiancheng's eyes made him feel an indescribable chill in his heart. Mo Wuya, you deserve to die. Chu Tiancheng held a blood-red blade in his hand. Endless blood-red chi flowed out, forming a ferocious demonic shadow behind him. Brother Chu, don't be rash. Mo Wuya quietly took 2 steps back and forced a smile. Brother Chu, impulsiveness is the devil. Yao died tragically. Where are you? Mo Wuya, you've truly disappointed me. Chu Tianqing shook his head, his expression extremely cold. Yao died tragically? Many thoughts ran through Mo Wuya's mind. It was obvious that Chu Tianqing's hatred stemmed from Yuan Yao's death. In other words, although he was also a devil, he was not in cahoots with Ling Xiao. I still have a chance. Brother Chu, after understanding all this, Mo Wuya's face was filled with bitterness. You don't know how terrifying Ling Xiao is. He didn't come here alone. If we fight now, it will be difficult to avenge Yao Er. You can hate me, kill me, but please allow me to help you avenge Yao Er first. Terrifying? Chu Tianqing lowered his head, his body seemingly trembling. Mo Wuya was dumbfounded when he saw the young man, sitting in the middle of the hall, suddenly let out a burst of ear-piercing laughter. Ha ha! Ha 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 ha! Mo Wuya, do you really think I'm afraid of him? Yes, although I lost him in 3 moves, it's different now. Chu Tianqing took a deep breath, his eyes filled with sorrow. Everything was decided by the heavens, right? Back then, he was defeated by Ling Xiao. It was only then that he comprehended the true meaning of the Saber Dao and was bestowed with the world's #1 martial art, the Evil Warding Saber Manual. The first page of the manual, cut off the roots of evil. The second page, cut off one's infatuated soul. The third page, destroy the world with a raise of the hand. The fourth page, slay gods with a wave of the saber. Slay gods with a wave of the saber. What kind of shocking martial art was this? Moreover, what surprised Chu Tianqing the most was that he only used a few days to comprehend such a powerful saber technique. What did this mean? It meant that there was something wrong with the saber technique. Of course not. This meant that he, Chu Tianqing, was extremely talented and had a high comprehension ability. He had the bearing of a saber god. Although, even now, Chu Tianqing still hadn't forgotten Yuan Yao. But, as long as he didn't admit it, who would know that he hadn't forgotten her? Originally, Chu Tianqing was still worried about what kind of spirit treasure could match such a terrifying saber technique, since the ancient illusory saber was already broken. However, just a few days ago, he accidentally discovered this ancient sight and the bloody saber in his hand. With Chu Tianqing's temperament, he wouldn't have any karma with such an evil thing. But now, Yuan Yao was dead and his Dao heart was shattered. As long as he could kill Ling Xiao, not to mention becoming a demon, even if he became an immemorial sky demon. So what if the 9 heavens didn't tolerate him? Achoo! Somewhere outside the palace, Ling Xiao frowned. He had a feeling that someone was missing him. Brother Chu, you're too arrogant. Mo Wuya stared blankly at the arrogant young man and didn't say anything for a long time. He really didn't know where Chu Tianqing got his confidence from. How could he dare to compete with Ling Xiao? But he felt like he was going to die. In the past 20 years of cultivation, he had spent most of his time on sculpting his ventriloquism and studying how to act cool. So, how could he be Chu Tianqing's opponent? I will first send you down to atone for Yao Er's sins. Then, I will personally kill Ling Xiao to avenge Yao Er. Buzz. The sky was overflowing with bloody light. Chu Tianqing took a step forward, and the demonic shadow followed behind him. Then, under Mo's dumbfounded gaze, he slashed down with a saber. The first move of the evil warding saber technique, vanquish evil. Boom! The boundless saber light turned into a seal and instantly shattered the void. Mo Wuya only felt a gust of wind coming at him. It was too late for him to dodge. He hurriedly circulated the spiritual energy in his body and gathered it in his hand, meeting the saber light head-on. Golden light bloomed in the sky, making Mo Wuya's figure appear even taller. However, at this time, his eyes were filled with a faint sense of death. With Chu Tianqing's cultivation, even if he wasn't Ling Xiao's opponent, it was more than enough to deal with him. It would be hard for him to block this saber strike. However, right at the moment when Mo Wuya turned around with the intention of escaping, he saw that the unparalleled saber intent descending upon him was actually stopped by a palm strike that he hurriedly sent forth. In fact, at this time, Mo Wuya had a feeling that if he used a little bit of strength, he would be able to crush this saber light. I suspect that Chu Tianqing is looking down on me. However, at this time, he clearly saw a trace of extreme killing intent and disdain in Chu Tianqing's eyes. It shouldn't be. This Chu Tianqing is so weak. What does he think that he can kill me with such a weak saber art? No, something is wrong. There must be something wrong. No matter what, it's better to leave first. Pucci. Suddenly, Boundless Mo coughed out a mouthful of blood as he was sent flying. Chapter 572. You want to leave? Looking at Mo Wuya, who was heavily injured by his saber, Chu Tianqing sneered. As expected, Elder Dao didn't lie to me. Just the first style of the saber technique was enough to injure Mo Wuya, the so-called #1 genius of the Western border. No matter how strong that Ling Xiao was, how could he contend against the 4 styles of my saber technique? With Chu Tianqing's current strength, killing Mo Wuya was a piece of cake. Naturally, the reason he used the saber technique was to test the might of this saber technique. Unfortunately, he encountered an actor. More importantly, this actor was acting for real and not for the sake of cooperating with Ling Xiao. Without a doubt, this allowed his acting skills to reach a higher level. Mo Wuya, you will die today. Buzz. A strange buzzing sound quietly resounded in the great hall. Within the bloody mist that filled the sky, ghostly shadows appeared and sealed off all of Mo Wuya's escape routes. This is... Mo Wuya's face paled as he looked at the bloody shadows that were closing in on him from all directions. At this moment, he could sense that these bloody shadows were condensed from baleful aura and contained a wisp of undying divine soul. Most likely, they were the remnant souls that died under the bloody saber. Damn it! Chu Tianqing, don't force me. Countless bloody shadows descended from the sky. Their bloody mouths were wide open as they tried to bite Boundless Mo. Even with Mo Wuya's cultivation, he felt a trace of despair and fear in his heart as he faced the countless bloody shadows. Furthermore, just as Mo Wuya waved his hand and shattered the bloody shadows in front of him, the remnant souls in the bloody mist were devoured by the remaining bloody shadows and became even stronger. The entire great hall was filled with the sound of ghosts crying. In the end, Mo Wuya's figure was engulfed by the countless bloody shadows, and he let out painful screams. Outside the great hall, Ling Xiao coldly looked at the miserable screams and the wisp of bloody aura. At this moment, he could also sense that these bloody shadows were most likely the souls that died under the bloody saber. In other words, it wasn't that Chu Tianqing cultivated a demonic technique and fell into the demonic path. It was that the saber was a demonic weapon. As expected, the Son of Heaven's mandate had terrifying luck. Wherever he went, he would encounter a suitable numinous treasure creation. Chu Tianqing cultivated the saber, and the evil saber had appeared in the demonic traces. If he was a swordsman, the sword in his hand would be a peerless evil sword. Of course, if it were the normal version, no matter how evil the saber was, it would only be a powerful spiritual treasure or even a trump card in Tianming's hands. At most, these children of destiny would roar angrily. Swords and sabers were not evil, but the evil was the human heart. As long as my Tao heart is strong, the evil intent within the saber will not be able to affect my mind. Ding! With the numinous treasure in my hands, I am still me, the light of the righteous path, loyal and righteous. Unfortunately, he met Ling Xiao. Before he obtained the saber, Chu Tianqing's Tao heart had already been shattered. Thus, at this moment, he had most likely already become an evil demon. I, Ling Xiao, slaying demons is the true act of chivalry. The world should praise my virtues and spread my good name. Buzz! Suddenly, Lightning flashed amidst the blood chi in the sky. In just an instant, the countless blood shadows let out evil cries and retreated. At this time, Mo Wuya's aura was extremely weak. Not a single inch of his skin was intact. He looked extremely miserable. And no, Ling Xiao looked at the struggling figure on the ground. His eyebrows twitched, and then he raised his foot and ruthlessly kicked Mo Wuya's face. No, eh. Mo Wuya cried out in pain and suddenly opened his eyes. What he saw was Ling Xiao's calm and indifferent face. Meanwhile, the blood shadows had retreated several meters away. And my lord! Suddenly, Mo Wuya's eyes were filled with tears. For the first time in his life, he found this figure to be so amiable. My lord, you're finally here. Beep. The child of destiny is grateful to the evil demon king. Congratulations to the host for plundering 500 luck points and 5,000 villain points. Beep. The child of destiny's luck has run out. Kill him now to obtain additional rewards. My lord. At the top of the hall, Chu Tianqing frowned. He slowly got up and angrily glared at the white-clothed youth. Mo Wuya, you really haven't given up on your evil intentions. You actually recognize this demon who killed Yao as your lord. My lord, quick, kill him. Mo Wuya's expression changed, and he shouted. However, there was a trace of doubt in his eyes at this time. Why is only my lord here? We're the 7 shadow guards. What? Did my lord really believe my words and only allowed him to enter this hall? My lord, I was wrong. I was wrong. I won't dare to lie to you anymore. Mo Wuya, I really didn't misjudge you. You coward, you never planned to join hands with me to deal with Ling Xiao. You just wanted to use my whereabouts to curry favor with your lord, right? Chu Tianqing coldly snorted and looked at Mo Wuya with eyes filled with killing intent. It doesn't matter anymore. Nothing else matters anymore. From the moment I picked up that blood blade, everyone in the immortal world deserved to die. You all will be buried with my Yao. That's right, Chu Tianqing. At least you have good eyesight. Why would I join hands with you to deal with my lord? Mo Wuya's expression changed, and he said righteously. However, just as he finished speaking, he felt a sharp pain in his chest. When he looked down again, he saw that a pitch-black, demonic blade had pierced through his heart and out of his body. Pucci, Mo Wuya tried his best to turn his head and look at the young man behind him. His face was filled with doubt. What happened? My lord, for you I was almost killed by Chu Tianqing. Why didn't you act according to common sense? I've already prepared several excuses to cover up my actions today. Can't you give me a chance to speak? In the end, Mo Wuya couldn't figure out why Ling Xiao would suddenly kill him. His body fell to the ground, and his blood stained the blue stone. Beep. Congratulations to the host for successfully killing the child of destiny. Additional reward. Holy words flourish. Fate forging value, 2%. 1 drop of ancient Qilint's holy blood. 1 chance to perfect the Tao. Gung metal Tao. Perfect. Ling Xiao smiled faintly and raised his head to look at Chu Tianqing. At this moment, the latter's face was filled with astonishment. Just killed? Although Mo Wuya's strength wasn't good, he still had the reputation of being a monstrous Tao. With his help, Ling Xiao's chances of winning were undoubtedly higher. But, it seemed that this divine envoy spokesperson was arrogant to the point of being conceited. Forget it. Today, you'll have to pay the price for your arrogance and cruelty. Ling Xiao, is what Mo Wuya said true? Did you really kill Yao? Chu Tianqing took a deep breath as a bone-deep hatred filled his determined face. Is it important? Anyway, you'll be able to see her soon. Ling Xiao smiled faintly. His white robe was resplendent. However, the demonic intent in his eyes instantly caused the temperature in the hall to drop. Chapter 573. Ling Xiao, you kill the one I love. Today, I'll make sure you never enter the reincarnation cycle. Chu Tianqing roared. The blood saber in his hand instantly emitted a dazzling light. Although he knew that Ling Xiao was very strong, Chu Tianqing did not fear him at all. Of course, he trusted Elder Dao. Although the latter was only a remnant soul now and his cultivation had fallen to the second-rank divine emperor. However, Elder Dao's experience and understanding of the Dao of the Saber made him the strongest existence Chu Tianqing had ever seen. According to Elder Dao, he had been a dominator of the Shengzhou when he was at his peak. Secondly, saber cultivators believed in advancing courageously. There was nothing in the world that could not be destroyed. Now that Chu Tianqing had encountered a fortuitous encounter and entered the Dao of the Saber, his battle strength had risen to a new level. Chu Tianqing was confident that no one in the Shengzhou could be his match as a divine general. Buzz! The terrifying sound of the saber resounded. The entire hall was filled with tens of thousands of souls, as if it was purgatory. At this moment, the blood saber in Chu Tianqing's hand emitted a cold light. There seemed to be strange runes flickering on it. Obviously, this saber was Chu Tianqing's fortuitous encounter. Ling Xiao, that day I was defeated in 3 moves. But now, 1 move is enough for me to kill you. Chu Tianqing walked to the front of the hall, his black eyes flickering with a scarlet light. Needless to say, the Son of Destiny was indeed good at showing off. Especially at this moment, Chu Tianqing was dressed in black. His eyes were cold and sharp. He really looked otherworldly. Buzz, my path to immortality was supposed to be filled with righteousness. I didn't expect that, because of you, my Dao heart would be covered in dust, and I would fall into the Dao of the demon. At this moment, Chu Tianqing's voice was somewhat low, but it was mixed with a sense of absolute determination to die. Around him, there were layers of demonic shadows. A wisp of Dao wool quietly circulated. Saber lights started to turn into a sea in the entire hall, blooming strands. It was like a galaxy, vast and endless, filled with mysteries. But I don't regret it, because you made me. The one I love has already turned into a skeleton. In this world, there is no longer anyone who can move my heart. As long as I kill you, there will be no more fetters in my Dao heart, and my path towards the Dao will lead to the 9 heavens. Boom! Suddenly, the originally weak Dao intent on Chu Tianqing's body howled into a vortex. His figure was also enveloped by the might of the Dao. The deafening sound of Dao echoed in the air. Above his head, a saber made of Dao laws gradually took form. On it, divine runes filled the air, and a piercingly cold immortal aura was emitted. This guy actually comprehended the true essence of saber intent and formed the origin law of Dao while he was acting tough, as expected of the chosen one. In fact, Chu Tianqing's own providence had increased by 500 points, reaching the range of 2,500 points. Tribulation clouds began to gather above the hall. Chu Tianqing's expression changed as he looked at Ling Xiao warily. However, at this moment, he saw that the latter's expression was indifferent, and he actually didn't have the slightest intention of taking the opportunity to attack. Only then did he heave a sigh of relief. He held the blood saber in his hand and glared at the tribulation clouds. I, Chu Tianqing, have a blade that can split heaven and earth. What can trifling tribulation clouds do to me? Chu Tianqing raised his blood-red saber high and slashed down. The saber light soared into the sky and became 100 feet long. It was like a blood-colored Milky Way falling. Wherever it passed, the void collapsed, and everything turned into nothingness. The tribulation clouds that had just gathered were actually split in half by Chu Tianqing's saber. In just a short moment, it disappeared without a trace. From the beginning to the end, Ling Xiao just stood there quietly and didn't take advantage of the situation to attack. After all, the comprehension of Dao laws was an extremely mysterious thing. The lightning tribulation descending was the final step. Chu Tianqing was so good at acting tough. If he acted rashly and caused the former to be struck to death by lightning, give me back my saber Dao laws. I, Ling Xiao, am a saint? You don't even understand what it means to be unscrupulous. You only know how to kill and kill all day long. Whoosh! The tribulation clouds dissipated, and Chu Tianqing's temperament seemed to have been sublimated. At this moment, he stood on the spot like a peerless divine saber that had been unsheathed. Its sharpness was limitless. The original Chu Tianqing was framed, and his meridians were all destroyed. However, he accidentally awakened a mysterious saber body and obtained the true inheritance of the ancient soul. However, he still lacked the comprehension of Tao laws. He was far from being a peerless genius. But now, with Yuan Yao's death, he could truly be said to have no woman in his heart. At this moment, at the end of his saber, only killing enemies was left. There were no more restraints. Therefore, he comprehended. Even so, how could someone who had just comprehended Tao laws be worthy of Ling Zhao's fear? One had to admit that the heavenly mandate model was indeed powerful. With luck, there was the possibility of a breakthrough at any time. If it were any other villain, even if they casually bullied Chu Tianqing before, they would most likely be dead by now. After all, this guy's comprehension was very sudden. He didn't give anyone time to prepare at all. Ling Xiao, I originally thought you were useless, hypocritical, and treacherous. Now, you are worthy of fighting me. Chu Tianqing lowered his head and looked at the young man standing in front of the palace. A complicated look flashed through his eyes. One had to admit that although Ling Xiao was cruel and ruthless, his character was indeed somewhat upright. At the very least, not everyone could remain indifferent when faced with an opponent's flaw. If Ling Xiao had taken the opportunity to attack just now, although Chu Tianqing had a 60% chance of killing him, he would still have had to take some risks. Beep. The child of destiny recognizes the villain's character and feels that he is awesome. Congratulations to the host for plundering 500 luck points and 5,000 villain points. Soon, the luck that Chu Tianqing had just gained was returned to him with a slap. Oh! Ling Xiao raised his eyebrows slightly. The corners of his mouth curled into a playful smile. The child of destiny thought highly of himself. If he wasn't praising the heavens, then he was setting up a square all day long. If I told him that I didn't attack him because I wanted him to comprehend Tao laws and give them to me, do you think he would piss himself on the spot? Come on, Ling Xiao. No matter why you killed Yao, only one of us can live today. Chu Tianqing took a deep breath. His eyes gradually calmed down. After comprehending the origin of Tao laws, the original fierceness in his eyes seemed to have dissipated completely. At this moment, he was like a peerless swordsman. Even if there was hatred in his heart, it was only obsession. It was not mixed with pain. Please begin your performance. Ling Xiao smiled faintly. Although there was no aura around him, the entire space was filled with an inexplicable pressure. The second move of the evil warding saber manual, Desireless. A saber light, like a dragon emerging from the sea, instantly pierced through the void and fell toward Ling Zhao's head. The divine light was unparalleled, illuminating the 9 heavens. That kind of power was indeed somewhat frightening. There seemed to be a Tao shadow around Chu Tianqing. Even his exposed skin was suffused with a brilliant silver color. The peerless saber body, the Tao laws of the saber. At this moment, Chu Tianqing's distracting thoughts were scattered. His battle-intent soared and became the most dazzling starlight in this place. However, in the face of such a terrifying attack, Ling Xiao still did not move at all. The lightning around him suddenly became bright and dazzling, enveloping his entire body. Then, under Chu Tianqing's dumbfounded gaze, he actually stretched out 2 more fingers. Chapter 574. Now, Chu Tianqing still had 2,000 points of luck left. Ling Xiao could easily kill him, but it was a waste to use the luck-plundering talisman on this half-crippled person. For a peerless saber cultivator, the best way to crush his Tao heart was to crush him directly. So what if you have luck? No matter how many times you reconstruct your Tao heart, I can still crush it with a flick of my finger. Boom! 100-meter-long saber light fell from the sky, full of Tao intent. However, this move was truly weak and powerless. The evil warding saber manual was a secular cultivation technique, and its mysteries were only for mortals. Even if Chu Tianqing was talented, he still hadn't reached the level of invincibility where he could kill immortals with a swing of a saber. On the path of immortality, talent was one thing, but cultivation techniques and spiritual treasures were also part of combat power. At the same level, how could a divine artifact shake a Tao artifact? Similarly, how could a saber cultivator who practiced secular martial arts cut a primordial sky demon that was already above his head? Crack! When the saber gleam entered his hand, the corners of Ling Zhao's mouth curled up into a smile. Then, under Chu Tianqing's dumbfounded gaze, the saber light that was supposed to kill the enemy shattered into pieces. How is this possible? Seeing this, Chu Tianqing's ferocious expression gradually froze. How is this possible? Why can't my saber cut him? Moreover, he couldn't even shake the power of his 2 fingers. Did Elder Tao lie to me? Beep. The child of destiny was shocked and made a wild guess. Congratulations to the host for plundering 500 luck points and 5,000 villain points. No, impossible. Without Elder Tao, I would have died in the Chu Palace. If there was no problem with the saber technique, then the problem must be with Ling Xiao. Suddenly, Chu Tianqing felt a chill in his heart. Could it be that this young man's strength had already reached a level where he could crush him? Although, the seal in the immortal world could suppress one's cultivation to the divine champion level. It was said that some primordial evildoers specialized in body cultivation and had physical strength comparable to immortal gods. Could it be? Brother Chu, didn't you say that a single strike of your blade would be enough to kill me? Ling Zhao's laughter was more like a form of mockery. It caused Chu Tianqing's trembling Tao heart to crack even more. I don't believe it. The 4th style of the Bishia Saber Manual, innocent. Chu Tianqing's face was as calm as still water. Saber will fill the air around him, revealing an endless sharpness. Then, his entire body transformed into a graceful swan, holding the blood saber in his hand and furiously slashing at Ling Xiao. The void collapsed and fell into darkness. Tribulation lightning could be faintly seen wriggling through the sky. Boundless avatars began to rise and fall with vast divine might. In Chu Tianqing's hand, the runes of the Tao laws evolved into a mysterious yellow. Amidst the blur, there seemed to be a celestial figure descending, exuding an ancient majesty. The mountains, rivers, the sun, the moon, the stars, and the Milky Way were not as resplendent as this saber strike. It was clear that Chu Tianqing was going all out. A strand of bloodlight transformed into a sea, and within it was a dragon that left the abyss. It was like a steed flitting through a crack, destroying everything. An earth-shattering spiritual aura rose with a loud bang and turned into rolling waves, overturning the entire hall in an instant. As smoke and dust rose, Chu Tianqing's figure finally appeared above Ling Zhao's head. In the next instant, the blood light converged into a line, and countless Tao sounds rang out. Meanwhile, the celestial figure behind Chu Tianqing suddenly opened its eyes. Slash! As soon as the word fell, a terrifying divine might surged out, containing an unstoppable momentum. The domineering saber divine physique was now accompanied by Tao laws. This crown prince of the great Chu dynasty had finally bloomed today. However, looking at the bloodlight descending from the sky, Ling Zhao's face was still expressionless. He clenched his fist and punched out. Endless blood chi soared into the sky without a trace of spiritual aura mixed in. Since he wanted to break Tao heart, of course, he would use the most direct and simple method. I've said before, your saber can't cut me. You can't even break my physical body. So, what do you have to compete with me? Ling Xiao, you're too arrogant. Chu Tianqing's eyes were filled with hatred. At this moment, he could feel that Ling Xiao was deliberately humiliating him and messing with his Tao heart. This was a trick. However, it seemed to have succeeded. He was furious. Boom! The moment the fist and the saber collided, the entire immortal world trembled. Immediately after, boundless divine light rippled. Everywhere it passed, everything was shattered into nothingness. Ling Xiao stood where he was and did not move at all. Meanwhile, Chu Tianqing, together with the celestial figure behind him, flew hundreds of miles away. The blood blade in his hand shattered inch by inch. What shattered along with it was the majestic celestial shadow above his head. Poof! He was defeated in the end. It was a crushing defeat. Beep! The Tao heart of the Chosen One has been shattered. Congratulations to the host for plundering 1,000 luck points and 10,000 villain points. Chu Tianqing landed on the ground. All the bones in his body had been broken by Ling Zhao's punch, especially the two hands holding the saber. They were badly mangled and smashed into meat paste. At this moment, he was lying on the ground, wriggling all over. He did not feel any pain, only a bone-chilling coldness. What? What happened to killing gods with a swing of the saber? What happened to conquering strength with gentleness and killing with one slash? Was it because Ling Xiao had not used the saber technique from beginning to end? Yes, the saber elder taught me the saber technique to restrain Ling Zhao's saber intent. But just now, he did not use the saber at all. Damn, I was too careless. Thump, thump, thump. It was not until the sound of footsteps in front of him that Chu Tianqing put aside his distracting thoughts and looked up at the immortal-like figure in white. Ling Xiao, I admit that you are very strong, but you better kill me now. Otherwise, sooner or later, I will cut you down with my saber. Oh! Ling Xiao raised his eyebrows slightly, a hint of a smile on his lips. Indeed, this saber cultivator would rather die than submit. You are already at death's door, yet you are still pretending to be weak. Do you think I will be like the other villains who will be angered by you, admire your backbone, and give you a chance to cultivate to become a god, and come back to kill me? I won't kill you now. Chu Tianqing narrowed his eyes, and a trace of fighting spirit appeared in his heart. He is indeed looking down on me. But Ling Xiao, you are very strong and can crush your generation. But I, Chu Tianqing, am not convinced. One day, I will surpass the heavens and fight with you. From the previous tribulation, Chu Tianqing could see that although Ling Xiao was arrogant and heartless, he had a bottom line. Perhaps he killed the geniuses of the western border just to train his Tao heart. In this way, meeting a stronger opponent should be what this young supreme being yearned for. Ling Xiao, although our paths are different, I am willing to call you my lifelong bond. Generally, in the early stages of the storyline, the child of destiny would inevitably encounter an unbelievably powerful villain of the same generation. Then, this villain would disappear for about 10 years and become the destined child's obsession. At first, the villain did not take the destined child seriously and did not even care about the square he had set up. Until one day, the destined child silently rose and walked in front of him. XX, do you still remember me? I said I would cut you down with my saber. When the plot reached its climax, it was another familiar wave of posturing and face-slapping. But, Cheng-er, I'm afraid you are thinking too much. I said I won't kill you now, but I did not say I won't kill you later. Chapter 575. Ling Xiao. There will be a day. Chu Tianqing took a deep breath. His eyes were clear, as if he had just walked out of the dejection of his defeat. Since Ling Xiao said that he would not kill him, he would not go back on his words. With Elder Dao's guidance, Chu Tianqing believed that he would still stand at the top of the world and have an unprecedented battle with Ling Xiao. Wait, Cheng-er, do you know why you lost today? Ling Xiao hurriedly waved his hand to interrupt Chu Tianqing. Cheng-er. Suddenly, Chu Tianqing's expression turned cold, and an inexplicable blush appeared on his face. Only Elder Dao would call him Cheng-er, but as expected, although I lost, I obviously have the qualifications to be Lord Ling Zhao's enemy. Such an intimate form of address might be the beginning of his respect for me. Saber users are indomitable and cut off karma. Ling Xiao, in the next 10 years, there will be legends of you and me in Shijiang. It's because I have concerns in my heart. I miss women, so I lost. Chu Tianqing took a deep breath. Although his tone was a little lonely, it was also full of sincerity. It was like a casual conversation between two old friends, without any hostility. If there is no woman in your heart, you will naturally draw your saber? Ling Xiao raised his eyebrows and suddenly shook his head. Then do you know what the second half of this sentence is? The second half? Chu Tianqing raised his head and looked at Ling Xiao blankly. At this time, all the bones in his body were broken, and he could not stand up at all. Otherwise, why do you think I, the dignified Tian Ming, would lie on the ground and chat with someone like a dead dog? If you have a sister in your arms, the damage will be doubled. Ling Xiao smiled faintly, but Chu Tianqing's expression instantly became sluggish. What the F*** CK? Does this mean that if you have a sister in your heart, your saber intent will be more domineering? Elder Dao, do you know anything about sabers? Why is it that what you said is completely different from what Lord Ling Xiao said? Or perhaps you've only comprehended a superficial level of saber intent, while Lord Ling Xiao has seen through the true meaning of saber cultivation. Yes, that must be it. Otherwise, why would I lose to him again and again? So it was because I was cultivating in the wrong direction. Does this mean that I chopped this root for nothing? Instantly, Chu Tianqing only felt anger in his heart, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. Beep, the chosen one is filled with resentment. Congratulations to host for plundering 300 luck points and 3,000 villain points. Young master, I understand now. So this is the reason why I lost. Chu Tianqing let out a long sigh, his eyes filled with sorrow. At this moment, he couldn't figure out whether he revered Ling Xiao or hated him. That's right, he had killed Yuan Yao, the love of his life. But now, after listening to his words, Chu Tianqing's understanding of the path of the saber seemed to have deepened. This was the so-called love-hate relationship. A qualified villain was definitely not the kind who only knew how to show off and appear the peak. It was the kind of who accompanied the protagonist as he grew, who was both friend and foe, until the end, an unavoidable battle. The dispute was over, and the grudges were settled. I'll hold a cup of turbid wine to commemorate your death and remember your past. There was an inner taste. No, Chung-er, you're wrong again. The real reason you lost was because the cultivation method you practiced was taught to you by me. Ling Xiao suddenly grinned, took out an ancient blue book from his chest, and threw it in front of Chu Tianqing. The determination on Chu Tianqing's face didn't disappear, and then he became sluggish. At this moment, he saw it. The ancient book that Ling Xiao casually threw on the ground had 4 big words written on it. Bixia Sword Manual. Moreover, there was a small line of words below the manual. Heartflower Publishing House. How could it be? Impossible. How could he have such a cultivation method? Chu Tianqing trembled as he stuck out his tongue and opened the first page of the manual. In the next moment, his face was completely pale. To practice this cultivation method, one must castrate himself first. Pucci, without hesitation, Chu Tianqing spat out a mouthful of blood several meters away. He raised his head and looked at Ling Xiao with confusion and pain. So, you're old Dao? But why do you want to destroy me, even though you've clearly helped me? Beep, child of destiny's heart, will of life and death. Congratulations to the host for plundering 200 luck points and 2,000 villain points. Beep, child of destiny's fate has been lost. Killing him now will give you an additional reward. A dead man doesn't need to know too much. Ling Xiao smiled indifferently, raised his foot, and stomped on Chu Tianqing's raised head. Pucci, blood and brain matter splattered on the ground. Chu Tianqing still didn't understand why the old Dao he respected was Ling Xiao. Beep, congratulations to the host for successfully killing the child of destiny. Reward, Dao of Saber Enlightenment. Fate casting value, 2%. Ancient body refining technique. Holy thunder divine body. Holy thunder divine body. Ling Xiao raised his eyebrows and disappeared from the main hall in a flash. His original form was the immemorial sky demon. He had gone through 9 transformations and was immortal. Therefore, this body refining technique wasn't very useful to him. However, it didn't mean that others were useless. Buzz. Ling Xiao appeared out of thin air in the north of the realm. Below him, 20,000 blood guards opened their eyes at the same time and bowed to the void. Greetings, Lord. I have a technique here that all of you can cultivate. With that, Ling Xiao spread out his consciousness and imprinted the holy thunder divine body that he had just obtained in everyone's minds. Then, with a wave of his hand, 1,000-foot-long thunder sun instantly appeared and hung above everyone's heads. The thunder intent within was vast and unparalleled, illuminating an area of hundreds of miles. Observe the cultivation of this day. The Thunder Tao Law was the most original power of thunder in the world. Observing this day and comprehending the power of thunder would be very beneficial to the cultivation of this ancient body. Thank you, Lord. With the strength of these 20,000 blood guards, although they weren't the best in the Xingzhou, they didn't have outstanding talent. However, 20,000 blood guards who had cultivated the Thunder Divine Body, when gathered together, would make one's scalp tingle. At this moment, Ling Xiao was already looking forward to the day when the blood guards were born. What kind of waves would the Shengzhou stir up? Young master, when Ling Xiao appeared outside the heavenly hall, a beautiful figure in white immediately came up to him. Although Han Qingqiu's face was still cold, there was a hint of a smile in her eyes. Yes, how's Ning Er? Ling Xiao gazed into the distance and looked in front of the sky hall. However, he saw that Ning Er's figure had already disappeared. Ning seems to be comprehending the Tao Law. Feng Ling said it would take a long time and took her away. Han Qingqiu's eyes were gentle as she explained softly. Oh, Ling Xiao wasn't surprised by this. From the moment Ning Er appeared, he knew that this little girl's model would be extremely powerful. After all, which one of Qing Mei's characters wasn't the child of destiny's existence? On the other hand, Feng Ling seemed to be very protective of this little girl. Young master, is everything settled? With Han Qingqiu's personality, it was usually difficult for her to speak 3 sentences in a row. But today, she seemed a little different. Chapter 576. Yes, Mo Wuye is dead. Ling Xiao nodded indifferently. Han Qingqiu's eyes flashed with a hint of hesitation. Young master, my martial aunt, where did Yu Xiao go? She's also dead. After you left, Yu Xiao suddenly attacked me. It was inexplicable. However, I found something on her body. Ling Xiao suddenly thought of something and took out a green ancient token from his Qian Kuan ring. I checked her soul consciousness. This thing seems to be the key to opening the immortal realm. Qingqiu, do you know it? Ling Xiao had already guessed Han Qingqiu's identity. This immortal token must be related to the location of the demon bone. To be able to resist the suppression of this realm, this token must have a great background. And he was a villain. If he wanted to open the opportunity and find the fortune, it would most likely be a little difficult. But Han Qingqiu was different. Although this young girl had already submitted to him and was willing to travel with the demon bone. However, she was truly a person of destiny. Giving her the immortal token was the right way to open the immortal realm. Of course, no matter what kind of danger was hidden in the immortal realm that suppressed the demon bone, Ling Xiao would not let Han Qingqiu enter rashly. After all, this young girl's role was not as simple as a leak. He had to chew on it slowly. Cold Moon Immortal Token. Sure enough, Han Qingqiu's expression changed when she saw the token. Perhaps she could not understand why this immortal treasure was in Yu Zhao's hands. However, she knew the use of this token. Young master was right. This immortal token was indeed the key to opening the immortal realm. But why was it in martial ant hands? There was a chance. Looking at the confusion on Han Qingqiu's face, Ling Zhao's lips curled up into a smile. Qingqiu, you know this token? Yes, young master. This token is called the Cold Moon Immortal Token. It's the symbol of the Cold Moon Palace Master's identity. It's just that this token has been missing for 100 years. Even Rinyu Ying has been looking for it. Han Qingqiu said truthfully. She did not understand Yu Zhao's character. As for the relationship between Yu Xiao and the Cold Moon Palace Master, very few people knew about it. Otherwise, how do you think she was able to survive in the Cold Moon Immortal Palace until now? Ever since Han Qing Qiu entered the Immortal Sect, Yu Xiao had always acted as if she had no desires and stood aloof from worldly affairs. Even though they were both on the same immortal mountain, the chances for the two of them to meet were pitifully few. As for why Yu Xiao would attack Ling Xiao, Han Qing Qiu had already guessed it. That was the fortune to become an immortal. On the surface, Ling Xiao was a disciple of the divine envoy of the saint. The reason Yu Xiao hid this token was most likely to find an opportunity to enter the immortal world and find that fortune. However, once this matter was known by the saint, she would be killed by the saint regardless of whether she found the secret to becoming an immortal or not. Perhaps she had never intended to let anyone from the immortals off from the very beginning. Of course, she probably wouldn't be able to find that fortune either. With Ling Xiao's temperament and methods, it was impossible for him to leave any threat behind. Therefore, Han Qingqiu had already expected Yu Zhao's death. Oh, then Qingqiu, what's the use of this token? Ling Zhao's eyes flickered with demonic light, while Han Qingqiu remained silent. After a long while, she raised her head and looked at Ling Xiao. Her eyes were filled with sadness. So, young master, you're also here for the secret to becoming an immortal, right? The secret to becoming an immortal? In this world, how could there be a fortune to become an immortal in one step? Everyone who stands on the heavenly pole has walked step by step. Those who reach the heavenly pole in one step are dead. Ling Xiao stood with his hands behind his back, his eyes filled with determination. His white robe emitted starlight, and his body revealed an inexplicable sense of vicissitudes. Hearing this, Han Qingqiu's face flashed with surprise. For a moment, she actually saw a trace of loneliness in this evil and cruel demon who toyed with the world. That's right, he's lonely, isn't he? The path he chose was destined to be the enemy of the entire world. Even though he was toying with the world in the palm of his hand, he still schemed and planned every step carefully. The glory on the surface was not eternal peace. On the contrary, he lived a life that was more tiring than anyone else. Suddenly, Han Qingqiu's heart seemed to have a new emotion. She quietly looked at the young man in front of her. Looking at the obsession in his black eyes, her lips slowly curled into a smile. I will accompany you. Her voice was soft but firm. Ling Xiao pretended to be puzzled and turned his head to look at the woman with bright eyes and a smile on her beautiful face. Suddenly, he shook his head and laughed bitterly. You better not fall in love with me. Remember, I'm a devil, and devils don't have true feelings. I don't care. Han Qingqiu took a deep breath. Her entire body began to emit moonlight. From the moment Ling Xiao appeared in front of her and blocked Mo Wuya, Han Qingqiu felt that there was something more in her heart. She felt that she was becoming more and more like a human. She would worry about gains and losses. She would have distracting thoughts. This was something that had never happened in the past hundreds of years. The path I want to walk is extremely dangerous. Not everyone has the courage to walk on it. Don't worry. I will do what I promised you. I know why you want to follow me. I will destroy the holy sect sooner or later. We will talk about the rest later. Ling Xiao looked up at the sky. His face was 45 degrees from the side. He looked resolute and handsome. Stinky sister, so this is what you like. The cold and aloof woman who harbored great hatred in her heart knew little about love. Therefore, when there is suddenly more care in their life than hatred, it is easier for them to fall for it. It starts with being touched and ends with acting cool. I can play any role you like. Young master, I can help you open the last secret realm. In the end, Han Qingqiu did not dwell on this matter too much. She transformed into a human for revenge. But all of a sudden, everything seemed to have changed. She did not have much obsession with the good and evil. In this world, those who love me are righteous. Those who hate me deserve to die. Beep. The destined woman is transforming into the sky. Congratulations to the host for obtaining 500 luck points and 5,000 villain points. But, young master, there's a ferocious thing suppressed in that secret realm. Also, according to what I know, there's an ancient powerhouse guarding it. Han Qingqiu looked at Ling Xiao. There was no longer any hesitation on her face. He did not covet the good fortune to become an immortal. So, he will not be disappointed, right? But it is dangerous. Even a palace lord is afraid of it. Once the ruins appear, how will young master deal with it? No worries. You just need to help me find the ruins. Leave the rest to me. Young master, if there is no good fortune to become an immortal in the ruins, isn't it a bit unworthy to take such a risk? In the end, Han Qingqiu asked the biggest concern in her heart. But what surprised her was that Ling Xiao only smiled and shook his head. I did not come here for the good fortune to become an immortal. The world is stupid. They always dream of reaching the heavens in a single step. But to me, the suppressed demonic thing is the greatest fortune. Ling Xiao's words were half true and half false. The good fortune to become an immortal was far away on the horizon, but close at hand. To him, the demonic bone was the goal of this trip. Moreover, if becoming an immortal was so easy, then the previous Cold Moon Palace Master would not have been harmed by others and ended up with her body and Dao vanishing. Chapter 577. You want to get that demonic item? Han Qingqiu's face lit up as she nodded silently. As for Ling Xiao's identity, although part of her memory had been erased, she could roughly guess it. Whether it was Xiaofeng or Jiangyu, why would a demon suddenly appear in Shijiang? Outsiders may not know, but Han Qingqiu knew that this was all part of this young man's plan. But even so, a plan must be convincing. The demonic could not be faked. Those demons in the present world also obeyed Ling Xiao. Therefore, perhaps, this gentle-looking young master with a celestial aura was the true devil in the eyes of the world. Especially his methods and temperament. They had nothing to do with the righteous path. It was precisely because of this that the occasional warmth was so precious. He schemed against the holy sect, pretended to be a disciple of the divine messenger, killed the emperor of the dynasty. The rules of this world seemed to have no restrictions on him. He was free and unrestrained. But the more he was like this, the more fascinating he was. That's right. My cultivation technique is related to this. So, I must get this demonic item. Ling Xiao nodded. His expression was still calm. How could he not guess the concerns in Han Qingqiu's heart? So, if he wanted her to work in peace, he had to make her believe that Ling Xiao was after something. But it was not the opportunity to become an immortal. I know. Don't worry. I will help you find the entrance to the ruins. Han Qingqiu played with the immortal token in her hand and finally returned it to Ling Xiao. This immortal token is the key to opening the ruins. You should keep it with you. As for the ruins, if I remember correctly, it should be in the deepest part of the immortal world. But it is usually covered by demonic light. You need to use the inheritance technique of the Cold Moon Immortal Palace to open it. Oh, the inheritance technique of the Cold Moon Immortal Palace? Ling Xiao sneered as a look of understanding flashed across his eyes. Now it seems that the existence of the immortal world and the Cold Moon Immortal Palace was deliberately arranged by someone. And this person with ulterior motives should be the immortal clan expert that Xionghuan had mentioned. But in this case, what kind of role did the holy sect play? This layer of fog had never been broken. However, Ling Xiao had a vague feeling that perhaps the source of the conflict was related to Yi Qing. Don't worry, there's still some time before the end of the immortals. You can stay here and cultivate in peace for the next few days. When the time is right, I'll come and get you. Ling Xiao casually tossed a Qingquan bag to Han Qingqiu. There's a Tier 7 spirit pill inside. It should be able to help you break through. Thank you, young master. Han Qingqiu pursed her red lips as she watched the figure leave. However, when Ling Xiao's aura completely disappeared, she opened her Qingquan bag and took out a white jade spiritual pill. An extremely complicated expression flashed across her beautiful eyes. It was as if he was regretting, as if he was reminiscing. In the depths of the realm, where heaven and earth intersected and rivers and seas connected, Ling Xiao sat cross-legged on the spot, while Xiong Huan, Xing Shun, and the others stood quietly in front of him. Xiong Huan, take them and search for the fortune of the ancient palace in the immortal world. Kill all the remaining prodigies of the western frontier while you're at it. Yes, master. Hearing this, there was no change in their expressions. They turned around and disappeared. Less than half of the prodigies of the western frontier were still alive. However, who knew if Xia Feng or Mo Wei had made friend with any of them? After all, the immortal world was filled with danger. Even if they died, no one would suspect them. Only by killing them all would there not be any accidents. As for the last relic, it couldn't run away. When it would open would depend on my mood. However, to be honest, facing an ancient powerhouse, even Ling Xiao had to be cautious. Therefore, it was better to increase his strength as much as possible before slowly plotting. Buzz. Between heaven and earth, there was a sudden flash of spiritual light. As for the white-robed figure, he slowly closed his eyes. Like a boulder, there was no change in his expression. Around him, there was a faint moonlight flowing. It was mysterious and unfathomable. Time passed slowly. In the blink of an eye, 1 month had passed. During this 1 month, the originally noisy immortal world suddenly quieted down. None of the prodigies of the western frontier who entered the immortal world survived. Within the realm, Ling Xiao suddenly opened his eyes. Around him, there was a majestic spiritual pressure. In the blink of an eye, he disappeared without a trace. A 9th grade divine overlord, only 1 step away from the first divine king realm. A 17-year-old divine king? Once this news gets out, the entire Shenzhou will fall into chaos. Throughout history, there will always be a peerless genius appearing in every generation. However, compared to Ling Xiao, these people were still far from him. It's time to meet that immortal powerhouse. Ling Xiao's eyes flashed with demonic intent. With a thought, he appeared before the heavenly palace. At this moment, Han Qingqiu's figure was sitting cross-legged on the plaza. Spiritual light was shining around her, and her aura was that of a 7th grade divine general. Young master? As if sensing Ling Xiao's aura, Han Qingqiu opened her eyes, and a smile appeared on her face. Let's go. Ling Xiao grabbed Han Qingqiu's hand and disappeared on the spot. Feeling the warmth from his hand, Han Qingqiu's face turned red. In the end, she did not struggle. Instead, she felt a sense of satisfaction. In the past, the two of them had deep interactions, but those interactions were forced and emotionless. However, in this short month, Han Qingqiu had never felt so frustrated. It was not because of hatred, but because she had not seen her young master for a month. Deep within the immortal world, Ling Xiao and Han Qingqiu stood side by side, looking at a mountain covered in demonic qi. If not for Han Qingqiu's guidance, Ling Xiao would have thought that this was the end of the immortal world and nothing was out of the ordinary. Young master, the palace that suppresses the demonic creatures is on the peak of the mountain. Han Qingqiu's face inexplicably carried a bit of seriousness and a trace of faint nostalgia. Ling Xiao's eyes were calm as he looked at the end of the demonic fog. People of the immortal race. I wonder what kind of surprise he will bring to me this time. Young master, with my current strength, it is difficult to break this seal. I can only help you open a gap. You must be careful. Han Qingqiu sighed. Based on her understanding of this young master, once he has decided on something, no one can stop him. So, there's no point in saying more. It is better to work hard to become stronger and be a useful person. Okay. Ling Xiao nodded. Suddenly, a moonlight floated in the sky around Han Qingqiu. The bright silver light shone through the 9 heavens, dispersing all the fog. On the peak of the mountain that was covered in demonic qi, a ray of light suddenly lit up. Next, a spiritual array that covered the sky gradually revealed its true form. There seemed to be mountains and rivers rippling and surging. Like an immortal descending, It completely suppressed the demonic qi in the mountain. Ling Zhao's eyes narrowed. His body flew up into the sky and headed towards a dark and ancient stone palace on the peak of the mountain. In his hand, the cold moon immortal token shone brightly and let out a loud, buzzing sound. Chapter 578. Boom! When Ling Zhao's figure disappeared, Han Qingqiu's delicate body trembled, and she almost fell to the ground. At this moment, her face was already ghastly pale. On her fragrant forehead, large beads of sweat flowed down along her fine black hair. However, there was no trace of exhaustion in her eyes. Instead, there was a trace of seriousness and worry in her eyes. That ancient palace contained extremely terrifying demonic intent. Even if an emperor god expert entered, his Tao heart would be easily disturbed. Moreover, there was an ancient expert guarding the depths of the palace. Young master, if you barge in recklessly, you will most likely die. Young master, please take care. Qingqiu will pray for you in front of the mountain and pray for your safety. If you don't come out in 2 months, I will also build a grave for you and set up a tombstone to let you rest in peace. However, I can't die, because I still have a blood feud to avenge. Buzz. On the peak of the mountain, Ling Zhao's figure descended from the sky. With the cold moon celestial token as a guide, the ancient array did not resist him at all. At this moment, at the end of his sight, there was an extremely majestic stone palace quietly standing there. Even though there was a distance between them, Ling Zhao could still feel the terrifying divine power and a trace of familiar demonic intent flowing around it. Tens of thousands of Tao runes bloomed with divine light. They were densely packed like vines, wrapping the ancient palace layer by layer. Endless demonic aura spread out from the gaps of the Tao runes, forming a seal that almost overturned the sky. The blue sky was dark, and there were faint demonic shadows and demonic chants. However, no matter how the demonic shadows roared, they were all suppressed by a layer of moonlight. The moonlight turned into an array, connecting the 8 directions and communicating with the 4 universes. It formed the 2 forces of heaven and earth, controlling the 2 forces of heaven and earth, and sealed the sea of demonic aura. As expected, I can't suppress it any longer. Ling Zhao was not in a hurry to enter the palace. Instead, he raised his head and looked at the ancient moonlight array on the peak of the mountain. On it, there were divine runes crisscrossing, revealing endless mysteries. Even with Ling Zhao's temperament, he still felt a chill in his heart when he saw the array. However, even though the ancient array was mysterious and unpredictable, the sea of demonic aura had the power to cover the sky. It was obvious that the person who sealed this place would not allow the demonic aura to leak out. The current situation could only mean that he was gradually losing control of the array. Senior, are you at the end of your tether? Since that's the case, why don't you ask this junior to help you suppress that demonic bone? Buzz. The cold moon ancient token suddenly released a blinding light. Ling Zhao didn't hesitate any longer and walked towards the ancient palace. No matter what kind of danger was hidden in the palace, it was not much of a threat to Ling Zhao. As long as he wanted to escape, he could hide in a realm at any time. At most, he would just endure and see who would die first. Moreover, there was still the purple qi, stainless divine body in the realm. As long as he was alive, even if Ling Zhao's main body died, he wouldn't be completely dead. Above the ancient palace, Tao runes flickered. Every single one of them seemed to contain a powerful amount of energy that made one feel terrified. Ling Zhao stood in front of the ancient palace and looked at the terrifying demonic qi gushing out from the gap of the palace door. His eyes gradually surged with joy. There was no mistake. The demonic qi in this demonic qi was exactly the same as his sky demon body. If Ling Zhao's guess was right, what was sealed in this palace was probably what his sky demon 4th refinement stage needed, the sky demon truebone. Ling Zhao wasn't very sure how the primordial sky demon died in the end. However, this great demon was born at the beginning of the primordial era and was formed by the first darkness in the world. Logically speaking, his body and divine soul should be immortal and indestructible. Even if he was severely injured or shattered, he definitely wouldn't die. Otherwise, why did you think he stood proudly at the top of the world and made the immortals and gods bow their heads and worship him? But in the end, he still died. There must be some secrets that Ling Xiao didn't know about. Or rather, there was something fishy about this great demon's death. Of course, for the current Ling Xiao, it was still far from the time to come into contact with such a secret. He just didn't know if the immortal's divine soul would taste different. Buzz! Ling Xiao reached out and touched the stone door of the ancient palace lightly. In his hand, the cold moon ancient token shone brightly. The originally dim ancient door also had starlight flowing around it, forming a formation and emitting a dazzling light. Boom! The palace door slowly opened, and a sea of demonic qi gushed out like a tide. If it was an ordinary expert, just the corrosion of this demonic qi would be enough to make him lose his mind. However, for Ling Xiao, this demonic qi was not dangerous at all. Instead, it was a great supplement. Of course, now that he was in the formation, he naturally didn't dare to openly devour the demonic qi. However, after he got rid of that immortal, this place would be a good place to cultivate. Finally, when the door of the ancient palace was completely opened, Ling Xiao lifted his feet and walked in. At this moment, an ancient bronze cauldron stood quietly in the middle of the palace. Dao patterns flowed on it, and immortal light rippled. It was actually another immortal treasure that surpassed a Dao artifact. This cauldron should be the numinous treasure that the previous Cold Moon Palace masters used to refine pills. Ling Xiao sneered. He wasn't in a hurry to keep this numinous treasure. Instead, he continued to walk into the depths of the ancient palace. At this moment, he didn't feel any divine soul fluctuation in the palace. However, the more it was like this, the more nervous Ling Xiao became. It was obvious that to be able to hide the divine soul fluctuation so perfectly that a mortal was either dead or his divine soul's level was much higher than Ling Xiao's. Dead? That's not very possible. Ling Xiao shook his head and smiled. His eyes were cold. When he appeared in the depths of the ancient palace, his expression turned serious. 100 zhang tall ancient doors stood at the end of Ling Xiao's line of sight. The carvings on it were mottled with rust, revealing an ancient aura. In the middle of the ancient door, a hole in the token suddenly appeared. This cold moon immortal token is indeed the key to opening this door. Ling Xiao lowered his head and looked at the immortal token in his hand. Without any hesitation, he raised his hand and inserted it into the hole. Buzz! An ear-piercing sound echoed throughout the entire palace. The entire bare mountain started to shake for no reason. Rays of dazzling light began to shine from the peak of the mountain. It turned into the silhouette of an immortal god, standing in the void. At the foot of the mountain, Han Qingqiu's beautiful eyes narrowed. She raised her head and looked at the silhouette that suddenly appeared. Her jade-like hands unconsciously clenched. It was obvious that the young master had most likely entered the place where the demonic creature was sealed. However, at the same time, the danger that the young master would face had just begun. In the depths of the ancient palace, Ling Xiao's face was also somewhat shocked. Before him, the ancient door disappeared into thin air and turned into a space enchantment. Inside, immortal light rippled and Dao energy flowed. It was indescribably majestic. It was as if it connected the two worlds and led to another unknown space. However, Ling Xiao didn't hesitate at all. He didn't prepare too many tricks. His white robe shone with starlight. His figure finally strode in. Right now, his identity was the disciple of the Cold Moon Immortal Token. If he was too cautious, it would be easy to arouse suspicion. Thus, he might as well be frank. Who knows? There might be an unexpected surprise. Chapter 579. Boom, boom. In the void barrier, Ling Xiao walked slowly. In his ears, Dao sounds echoed. In front of him, Divine shadows overlapped like an illusion of time, constantly changing shape. Time passed slowly. After an unknown period of time, when the illusions in front of him dissipated and the divine light dimmed, Ling Xiao finally stopped. At this moment, what appeared in front of him was no longer the immortal palace ruins, but an otherworldly forest with beautiful mountains and clear waters. There were tens of thousands of peach trees in the forest, and mist was dense. Flowers bloomed on every peach tree. Spiritual light flowed on them, and Tao intent spread out. The Tao light soared into the sky and gathered into a river above the peach forest, flickering like starlight. It was extremely spectacular. You're finally here. Just as Ling Xiao looked at the immortal forest in front of him calmly, a gentle sigh suddenly sounded in his heart. Ling Xiao's eyes narrowed, and a trace of coldness appeared in his heart for no reason. This voice was calm and ancient, without the slightest emotion. There was a hint of the great Tao holy will in it, causing one's mind to be clear, and the spiritual energy around one's body seemed to show signs of collapsing. In the peach forest, a spiritual wind suddenly blew, blowing thousands of peach blossoms down and whistling towards Ling Xiao. Seeing this scene, Ling Xiao's body tensed up, but he did not dare to move at all. However, there seemed to be a wisp of moonlight flickering around his body. Buzz! Peach blossom petals fell like rain. However, what surprised Ling Xiao was that the rain of petals did not carry any power when it fell from the sky. Before he could think further, the thousands of peach blossoms suddenly turned into pink spiritual light and disappeared without a trace after a short bloom. Wisps of spiritual light descended, evolving into boundless phenomena. At the same time, a figure suddenly appeared in the depths of the peach blossom forest, and it was lying on the branch of an ancient tree while looking at him with a teasing gaze. Around its body, there was a faint immortal radiance that evolved into stars and moons, filled with an eternal and indestructible intent. That's right, it's the cold moon cultivation technique. Are you a disciple of the immortal palace? Hearing this, Ling Xiao's eyes trembled slightly. There seemed to be fear on his face, but he snorted coldly in his heart. Fortunately, when he killed Yu Xiao back then, he had conveniently cultivated this cold moon immortal palace's legacy cultivation method. The peach blossom rain just now was most likely this person's method of probing him. However, with the ancient Panga rock, even a Saint Realm expert would absolutely be unable to easily investigate the secrets in Ling Xiao's possession. Ling Xiao's current fear was, of course, an act. After all, this person was the founder of the Cold Moon Celestial Palace. However, what surprised Ling Xiao was that this person from the celestial race was actually a woman. Moreover, from the looks of it, she was a picturesque, peerless woman. She was young and beautiful, like a 16-year-old girl. Her black hair cascaded down her back like a waterfall. She seemed to have merged with the peach forest, giving her a unique charm. That's right, disciple Ling Xiao. Ling Xiao smiled cautiously and bowed to the immortal woman from afar. At this moment, he could sense that this immortal's cultivation had clearly surpassed the realm of the God Emperor. However, just as Xiong Huan had said, due to the restrictions of the Shengzhou Heavenly Tao, her cultivation level was still stuck at the first level of the God Emperor realm. Even so, with the battle strength Ling Xiao possessed, it would still be somewhat difficult to kill her directly. However, at this moment, Ling Xiao could also tell that although this lady was powerful, she was only a soul. If he could lure her into his soul sea, it would not be impossible to kill her. All right, you should prepare. My physical body is shattered and I can't get close to the seal. Take the immortal token and enter to stabilize the seal. Just as Ling Xiao was thinking to himself, he suddenly heard the indifferent words of the woman in the forest. A look of surprise flashed across his face. Was this what it meant by someone giving him a pillow when he was tired? This immortal was obviously unable to walk out of the ruins. Otherwise, she would not have been able to stay here for hundreds of years and rely on the immortal treasure array to deceive the western border prodigies and steal their spiritual power. As long as Ling Xiao obtained the demonic bone, this trip would be complete. Although he could not kill this immortal now, it did not mean that he could not kill her in the future. At least in Ling Xiao's opinion, Sect Master Tai Xian had the ability to kill this immortal. Originally, Ling Xiao had hoped that this immortal's cultivation level would drop and that Xiong Huan and the others would work together to kill her. However, the moment Ling Xiao saw her, he knew that Xiong Huan could not kill her. Moreover, this space was full of mysteries and was full of Tao. This immortal might have other tricks up her sleeve. If Ling Xiao could not kill her in one go, he might completely miss the opportunity to obtain the demonic bone. The methods of ancient experts were not something that the current Ling Xiao could imagine. However, he really did not expect this immortal to believe him so easily. Moreover, she even took the initiative to give him a chance to get close to the demonic bone. Could it be that because of the increase in destiny forging points, I, Ling Xiao, also have my own creation? However, Ling Xiao calmed down very quickly. The Hanyu Palace Master had been dead for hundreds of years. Now, the array formation in the immortal world had also been destroyed by Ling Xiao. However, why did this immortal not ask about it at all? Moreover, she clearly still had her strength. Why couldn't she suppress the demonic chi here? What are you waiting for? Use the immortal palace inheritance of our sect and activate the immortal token to suppress that demonic thing. Otherwise, I'm afraid that the demonic chi here will really break the seal of the array formation. Sigh. On the branch of the ancient tree, the female immortal suddenly sighed softly. Her eyes seemed a little sad. In less than 100 years, if this demonic bone cannot be completely suppressed, I'm afraid that even with my life, it will be difficult to seal it again. How is the refinement of that elixir? It's almost done, Ling Xiao said indifferently. A hint of doubt flashed in his eyes. It was obvious that this female immortal had reached the end of her rope. Could it be that he had been thinking too much from the beginning? Originally, Ling Xiao thought that this female immortal might have other thoughts about the demonic bone, since she had left behind her inheritance, array formation, and various other methods to seal the demonic bone. However, after seeing it today, this female immortal also seemed to want to suppress the bone as soon as possible. It was just that she was somewhat powerless. To put it simply, it was not that she wanted the bone, but that she was not strong enough and could not truly seal it. Yes, in 100 years, this is the only hope. There must not be any accidents. After saying that, the female immortal suddenly stood up and looked at the void. Then, Ling Xiao was somewhat shocked to see that in the peach forest, thousands of peach blossoms rose up and gathered into a river, floating toward the distant sky. Buzz! Heaven and earth trembled. Countless Tao patterns appeared in the sky. In the end, they formed the illusory image of an ancient palace. It quietly floated in the air, revealing a surging aura. In an instant, the entire secret realm was filled with the whistling of spiritual wind. Peach blossoms were everywhere. A heavenly path formed completely by peach blossoms descended from above and stood in front of Ling Xiao. Remember, you must use all your strength to stabilize the seal. Yes. Ling Xiao nodded indifferently. He lifted his foot and walked toward the heavenly path. Now, it seemed that this trip to the immortal world had gone surprisingly smoothly. However, watching the young man's figure gradually disappear at the end of her sight, the female immortal's lips curled into a faint smile. Chapter 580. Boom! As Ling Xiao stepped onto the path of immortality, the peach blossom spirit shadows quietly shattered wherever he went, turning into starlight that scattered from the sky. Above the void, rivers began to form, and the sun and moon began to rise and fall. Godly figures that were hundreds of meters tall seemed to step through the void and arrive, standing around the ancient palace. Like the most loyal servants, they suppressed all evil in the world. Clearly, the Peach Blossom Immortal Road and the Void Anomaly were the doing of the female immortal. The heavenly demon bone that was sealed in this hall should be the heavenly demon bone. In the end, the path of immortality shattered, the spirit light extinguished, and countless Tao inscriptions turned into nothingness. The entire immortal realm fell into a dead silence. Only the female immortal stood with her hands behind her back. She looked at the ancient palace above her, her eyes filled with inexplicable vicissitudes. It's been 900 years. On the other side, Ling Zhao's figure appeared in the golden palace. Only now did he understand why the immortal could not approach the seal here. Originally, he planned to enter the ancient palace and find the demon bone, then throw into the realm to hide it from the female immortal. But at this moment, he realized that he had been too naive. This seal did not only target the devil will, but it also completely sealed the divine soul. Ling Xiao could not communicate with the realm at all. He could not even sense his own soul see. How can this be? Ling Xiao stood in the palace, frowning slightly as he looked at a pitch-black stone coffin not far away. Could this demon bone be related to the divine soul? Otherwise, why would the female immortal spin a cocoon around herself and seal the power of the divine soul? However, in this way, it was a free combination of factors that helped him achieve his goal. Inside the ancient palace, he did not have to worry about the female immortal's divine soul prying. In fact, as long as he stayed inside, no matter how long it took, he did not have to worry about being disturbed. Wonderful. Fate was indeed a mysterious thing. Now, all the settings seem to have been prepared for Ling Xiao alone. This is probably what you people often say, destiny, right? But the more it was like this, the less happy Ling Xiao's face was. Instead, there was a hint of gloominess. It was too much of a coincidence. Everything was so coincidental that it was unimaginable. How could an immortal who had sealed the demon bone and suppressed an entire realm be so careless as to allow him, the reincarnation of the sky demon, to approach the demon bone so easily? Anyone who could survive from the ancient times, regardless of whether it was a person or a remnant soul, which one of them wasn't scheming and scheming. But up until now, the immortal didn't seem to have any doubts about Ling Zhao's identity. Although it was a symbolic test, it seemed too perfunctory. However, if she had any ulterior motives, why would she wait until now? Ling Xiao frowned, pondered for a moment, and finally shook his head. He was determined to obtain the demon bone. Right now, he had to fuse with the demon bone as soon as possible and leave the secret realm. As for the female immortal, no matter what she was plotting, she was just a soul. The threat she posed to Ling Xiao was not as insurmountable as she had imagined. In the end, Ling Xiao walked up to the stone coffin and gently pushed open the coffin lid that had been sealed for countless years. Boom! Demonic qi gushed out of the ancient coffin like an ocean. The entire hall instantly turned into a sea of demonic qi. A wisp of saintly might fell from the sky, almost crushing Ling Zhao's figure to the ground. At this moment, endless demonic qi gathered into a vortex in the void above. A demonic figure gradually appeared in the vortex. It stood in the void with its hands behind its back, exuding an ancient, domineering aura. Ling Xiao couldn't be more familiar with this figure. Although he still couldn't see its face clearly, who else could it be but the number one immemorial demon, the sky demon? Who else could it be? But at this moment, Ling Zhao's eyes didn't linger on the demonic figure for too long. Instead, he lowered his head to look inside the stone coffin. The next moment, his eyes suddenly focused. The demonic qi in the stone coffin gradually dissipated, revealing a sparkling and translucent white bone. It was a skull, or rather a head. But what surprised Ling Xiao was that the color of the bone was so pure and sacred. There was even a wisp of divine will circulating in it, deriving countless mystical things out of thin air. The sun and moon sank and alternated. Immortal palaces rose and fell, and beautiful women danced. Ancient trees formed a sea, and great demons looked up to the sky. 3,000 immortals and demons knelt on the ground together. Everything seemed to be the beginning of the world and the beginning of the primordial chaos. It also seemed like the end of an era, and everything returned to nothingness. Ling Xiao also heard nerves, Dao sounds, and demonic chants at the same time. In a daze, memories began to appear one after another. But this time, Ling Xiao was no longer a spectator, but the owner of these memories. Finally, the images stopped, and an ancient bluestone path descended from the sky. On both sides of the ancient path were endless clouds and a bottomless abyss. Ling Xiao frowned and looked at the end of the stone path, at a faintly discernible, graceful figure. Suddenly, a sharp pain surged from the bottom of his heart. However, just as he lifted his foot and walked toward the mountain peak, the scene in front of him changed again. A murderous aura suddenly enveloped him. The Dao sounds rang together, and the void trembled. Before Ling Xiao could react, he saw countless figures in golden armor holding numinous treasures in their hands, charging towards him from the sky. Endless murderous aura and eternal darkness. Tom seemed to have stopped at this moment. Only that blood-stained figure was walking towards the sky step by step. There, a white-haired figure in green clothes gradually revealed her true form. That was a face so beautiful that it made one suffocate. Her snow-white hair contrasted with her snow-white skin. Her entire person was like an ice crystal, and her aura was flawless and otherworldly. Although her eyes were closed, the ice-blue flame totem between her eyebrows made one feel as if one's mind was being peeked at. She stood on the mountain peak, as if she had become one with the world. The clouds brushed past, but they could not bear to disturb her dreams. Just as Ling Xiao was in a daze, a heavenly might suddenly suppressed him from the void. It was a divine figure that was hundreds of feet tall. The golden saber in his hand slashed horizontally, and the saber intent pierced through the sky and landed on Ling Xiao's shoulder, sprinkling blood. Heaven and earth fell silent, and an absolute chill spread from the mountain peak. The white-haired woman standing on the mountain peak suddenly fluttered her eyelashes and slowly opened her eyes. It was a pair of ice-blue eyes. Just one look was enough to make one fall into depravity. Buzz! A terrifying aura began to rise, and countless Dao patterns turned into heavenly Dao shackles that snaked around the woman. In the void, a divine power that could be seen with the naked eye rippled. Everywhere it passed, the space froze and shattered like a mirror. The countless golden guards surrounding Ling Xiao did not even have time to react before they turned into statues along with the ancient bluestone path under their feet. Ling Xiao's eyes narrowed. Even with his temperament, he felt a little scared at this moment. Freezing the world with one look? What kind of terrifying means is this? Just as he looked up at the mountain peak, he saw the woman's ice-blue eyes, which were filled with endless gentleness, landing on him. Buzz! Chapter 581. The 9 heavens fell into darkness at the same time, and all light was extinguished. There was a wisp of coldness at the end of the world. In just a short moment, the divine sun was gone, and the spiritual light was gone. Above the 9 heavens, the entire celestial world was covered in snow, as if winter had arrived. Countless powerful figures woke up from their slumber and cultivation. They stepped out of palaces, tombs, divine mountains, and cave residences, and looked into the distance. At the end of the celestial world, there was a towering snowy mountain that connected the heavens and the earth. At the peak of the snowy mountain, a magnificent stone palace stood quietly. However, unlike all the other celestial palaces in this world, this ancient palace was not golden, nor was it carved. It was a pitch-black stone palace, like a tomb, and it faintly emitted a desolate demonic aura. In the depths of the ancient hall, a mellow, ethereal, and sorrowful sigh resounded silently. "Is it you?" Boom! At the same time, in the immortals, Ling Xiao's eyes suddenly opened, mixed with a touch of confusion. Above his head, the jade-like demonic bone suddenly bloomed with divine light. In the next moment, the jade-like bone turned into a dazzling stream of light and flashed into Ling Zhao's sea of soul. Ah! Intense pain instantly came, and demonic aura surged out of Ling Zhao's eyes uncontrollably. Behind him, an ancient demonic figure seemed to have come from ancient times. Demonic runes that contained supreme truths began to light up in the palace, dazzling and dazzling. In the end, these runes transformed into a seal and disappeared between Ling Zhao's eyebrows. There, a blood-red, demonic rune gradually became clear. It seemed to bind the most evil power in the world, capable of destroying heaven and earth and destroying all worlds. Demonic figures began to appear around Ling Zhao, as if there were 3,000 of them, and they all knelt down in worship. At this moment, his aura finally rose abruptly. Below the ancient palace, the female celestial looked up at the sky. Her clear eyes contained a touch of vicissitudes that did not match her appearance. There was no smile on her face, nor was there the slightest bit of fear. There was only an indescribable stubbornness. Shenzhou, central border. The four borders of the Shenzhou continent each spanned tens of thousands of miles. Only the central territory was not large. However, those who could occupy a spirit mountain and immortals' cave abodes and establish their own sects were all the top figures in the 5 territories. It was rumored that there was an immortal promotion plateau in the central territory, where the destiny of the Shenzhou continent was located. In the past, if Shenzhou experts wanted to ascend to the higher realms, they would have to step onto the immortal promotion plateau and attain the immortal Tao. Only then would they have a chance of being received. In other words, the immortal promotion plateau was the only place that connected the Shenzhou and the upper world. The spiritual qi here was rich, and the Taoist rhymes were formed naturally. The one who occupied this platform would be able to control the Shenzhou continent. At this moment, at the foot of a mountain at the center of the central territory, an azure-robed figure appeared in the void. Looking at the mountain peak in the distance, there was a trace of disappointment in her beautiful eyes. During this month, Yi Qingqian traveled all the way east in pursuit of the mystical Tao voice in her mind. Finally, she arrived in front of this immortal mountain. However, this celestial mountain was called Mount Enlightenment, and it was where the sacred sect was located. With Yi Qingqian's current strength, she was naturally at the top of the younger generation in the Shenzhou continent. However, in front of the colossus that was the sacred sect, she was simply too small and pitiful. No matter what, I have to try my best. Yi Qingqian took a deep breath, and her figure suddenly disappeared on the spot. At the same time, at the peak of the immortal mountain, a golden-robed figure suddenly opened his eyes. Sunlight flowed, and patterns of the great Tao rippled in his eyes. The corners of his mouth curled into an inexplicable smile. Whoosh! Yi Qingqian's figure floated past like a mountain breeze. Unlike the danger she had imagined, she did not see a single disciple of the sacred sect along the way. She did not even encounter a formation spirit seal. It was not until her figure appeared on a perilous peak in the back mountain that her footsteps slowed down. At the end of her line of sight was an ancient bluestone altar. The altar was about 10 feet tall, with octagonal cornices. There were many mystical runes carved on it. Upon closer inspection, Tao flowed, and an immortal aura was born. Above the altar, an ancient bronze token floated quietly, emitting a dense light. If Ling Zhao was here, he would be extremely shocked to see this token. That was because this ancient token was extremely similar to the cold moon divine token in his hand. Are you the one who summoned me? Yi Qingqian frowned slightly, walked up to the altar, and looked up at the bronze token. At that moment, a sudden change occurred. The altar, which originally did not have a trace of spiritual light, suddenly had a divine cloud shoot into the sky. It turned into a large formation, trapping Yi Qingqian's figure in it. Yi Qingqian's pretty face froze. She grabbed the ancient token, and spiritual light surged around her, and an extremely cold aura instantly rippled out. However, her current strength was only at the Divine King realm. How could she break out of the prison that the Divine Master of the Sacred Sect had personally set up? Therefore, when the cold light collided with the spiritual formation, Yi Qingchan's face turned pale, and a trace of blood flowed from the corner of her mouth. Do you remember? In the golden palace far away, the divine master stood with his hands behind his back, looking in the direction of the back mountain. There was a dazzling golden pillar that pierced through the sky, standing at the peak of the mountain. Yes, divine master. Behind him, a young girl who was also dressed in a golden robe and had a picturesque appearance bowed slightly and replied softly. The young girl looked to be in her early 20s. She had thin shoulders, a slender waist, and a slender figure. As she looked around, there was a cold arrogance in her eyes. She wore a dazzling golden robe with clouds embroidered on it. It was tied at the waist, and her hair was simple, casually draped over her shoulders, adding a fresh and elegant gentleness to her. Just by standing there, she seemed to be surrounded by heavenly music, and divine birds flew around her. She looked like a fairy from the heavens who had descended to the world. Your divine body has never been seen before. I used 280 years to purify the impurities in your body, and another 20 years to teach you cultivation methods and remarkable abilities. Now, the entire Xingzhou knows that there's a saint in the sacred sect, but no one has seen your true appearance. You must remember that you must repay the karma in this world. If you want to reach the peak of the immortal path, you must cut off all distracting thoughts and ignore the secular world. The divine master turned his head and looked deeply at the young girl. Yes, I will remember. From today onwards, I will go into seclusion for at least 10 years, and the longest will be 100 years. You must not tell anyone about this. You will temporarily act as the divine master of the sacred sect's command. You can make any decision on your own. You can dispatch the experts of the sacred sect as you wish. I will use this as an excuse to inform the sacred sect. This will be your training. As soon as he finished speaking, the divine master suddenly threw out an object, which landed in front of the young girl. His figure disappeared from the front of the hall. The young girl took the divine order and bowed. When she got up again, her face was covered by clouds, hiding her true appearance. She turned around and walked into the palace. Tao Comprehension Back Mountain. The divine master's figure flashed out, and the entire mountain peak suddenly bloomed with clouds, which turned into a spiritual array and enveloped the entire mountain peak. His gaze, however, had already landed on the azure-clothed girl on the altar. I have waited for you for 300 years. You are finally back. Hearing this, a cold light flashed in Yi Qingchan's eyes. The ancient bronze order in her hand gave off a divine glow, which blocked all the spiritual power between heaven and earth. Chapter 582. It seems that you haven't fully recovered. The divine master shook his head and smiled. Golden light rippled in his eyes. But it doesn't matter. You are no longer a threat to me. So, don't struggle anymore. Who exactly are you? Yi Qingchan frowned slightly, and her eyes were full of indifference. She had not fully recovered her memories. In other words, she was no longer the Yi Qingchan from the moment she chose to devour that ancient soul. Right now, she was the young master's Qingchan, not that mysterious ancient powerhouse. Who am I? I often ask myself this question. The divine master looked up at the sky with a calm expression. Yi Qingchan, in fact, I should thank you. If you hadn't separated our Ro and me back then, perhaps I wouldn't have developed hatred for you, and wouldn't have schemed to become stronger. Now, all the living beings in this world are bowing down to me and treating me as their master. That ant from the lower realm that you didn't care about has become the immortal god that decides your life. Don't you think it's funny? Aro, Yi Qingchan's eyes flickered. A fair and beautiful face gradually appeared in front of her eyes. Although she had forgotten many things, it seemed that this woman had once caused her great pain. Do you know what's the funniest thing? Until now, Aro still thinks that she was the one who let you go and helped you reincarnate. She doesn't know that everything is within my expectations. The divine master sneered. The indifferent expression on his face suddenly turned ferocious. You are very powerful. so powerful that I didn't dare to take any risks. So, I helped you reincarnate and asked you to recultivate so that I could have more time to prepare. This way, even if you reincarnate and the Foliaceae knew about it, it would be useless. Yi Qing-chan, now you should help me with one last thing. Zhou Yindao. Yi Qing-chan suddenly raised her head and looked at the divine master of the sacred sect, who was smiling coldly. A cold light flashed across her beautiful eyes. Extreme coldness whistled and formed a vortex. It almost froze the space into ice. The golden light above the altar stopped. It looked like it was about to shatter. You finally remember me. The divine lord nodded indifferently, his eyes filled with mockery. Time is truly a mysterious thing. Who would have thought that the high and mighty lord of Yi would one day lose his memories? You want to borrow my hand to open the immortal promotion plateau? Yi Qing-chan looked at the immortal medallion in her hand. Her entire temperament began to become ethereal and cold. It was clear that she had thought of something at this moment. You're wrong. For the past 300 years, I have been in a trance all the time. I am afraid that the experts of the Foliaceae will know about your reincarnation and come to investigate. However, I can only refine half of the mark of the Foliaceae in the floating sky token. So, I need to use your divine soul and bloodline to completely seal this world. The immortal leader sighed. In this world, I am already undefeatable. Plus, there are treasures here that can shake the 9 heavens. Why would I open the platform of immortality? Creation that shakes the 9 heavens. Yi Qing-chan's eyes flashed with confusion. I used 10 years to scheme against Baiji Ro, and another 300 years to truly step out of the shackles of the world. As long as I can seal this world and obtain that good fortune, I will achieve immortality. Your Yi clan, what can you do to me? By then, I will be able to break the seal at any time. Why would I need your help? I understand. Yi Qing-chan nodded. A tall figure in white appeared in her mind. The corners of her mouth curled into a smile. You can't do it. Can't do it? In the entire Xingzhou, you're the only one who poses a threat to me. Who else can be my opponent? Yi Qing-chan, you don't have to struggle anymore. Although I can't completely seal this world, I have set up countless means to stop the operation of the formation in this world in the past 300 years. Now, as long as I refine you and this divine token, this world will submit to me. Boom! The divine master shouted coldly. Divine light shot into the sky from his body. Lines of the great path fell from the sky, turning into the shadow of a furnace that enveloped the entire mountain peak. A terrifying power spread out. In a breath's time, the grass and trees were turned into ashes. Even the void was shattered into countless pitch-black cracks. I'm afraid you can't refine me. Yi Qing-chan chuckled. Her eyes were filled with coldness. Divine light also flickered around her body. In her hand, the ancient bronze medallion floated in the air. It emitted a boundless azure sun. Its divine power pierced through the sky and blocked the furnace's power. I've waited for 300 years. Yi Qing-chan, let's see how long you can last. The divine master shook his head. He sat down cross-legged and formed a seal with his hands. He lifted the furnace into the sky. With his strength, killing Yi Qing-chan would be easy. But once he did so, the Foliaceae of the upper world would know. This was the reason why he had let a wisp of her spirit go through reincarnation. In order to completely seal this world, he had to use his divine power to refine Yi Qing-chan's spirit. Then, he would use the Foliaceae's divine medallion as a guide to destroy the immortal ascension platform. Only then would the Shengzhou continent truly fall into his hands. Then, he would be able to search for the creation with peace of mind. Everyone said that this world had been sealed by someone and no one could step out of the Emperor realm. But he did it. The reason for this was because of that divine item. According to what Zhou Yindao knew, he was not the only divine item sealed in the holy state. Time passed slowly. In the blink of an eye, 1 month had passed. In the immortal world, Ling Zhao's demonic aura was completely restrained. He was like a boulder and did not emit any power. At this moment, a strange demonic rune flickered on his forehead. There seemed to be a divine shadow within it. Demons and spirits roared together. But in the end, they were all suppressed by the rune. At the same time, a demonic sun appeared in Ling Zhao's soul sea, releasing endless demonic aura. At a closer look, there was an ancient rune floating quietly in the middle of the demonic sun. The pressure from it was terrifying, as if it could suppress eternity. It revealed a domineering aura. The primordial sky demon was born in the first darkness of the primordial age. This demonic rune was the sky demon's companion spiritual item, the primordial ancestral rune. But now it was not complete. But even so, Ling Xiao was still unable to activate the true power of the ancestral rune with his current strength. In particular, the origin energy contained in it transcended the Tao laws and vaguely had an unparalleled domineering aura. With this rune in his soul sea, Ling Xiao believed that no one in this world could break his soul sea and seize his divine will. It's time to go out. Ling Xiao stood up and looked at the distant sky, although he still did not know who the white-haired woman in his soul sea was. In fact, at this moment, he had already forgotten what she looked like. But that absolute coldness was inexplicably familiar. Moreover, the memories that could be engraved in the depths of the primordial sky demon's soul sea must be the most ingrained and persistent thoughts. Ling Xiao had an inexplicable feeling that the woman was still alive. Moreover, it must be closely related to his identity. There was a faint but clear bloodline feeling. Will she be able to sense my presence? Chapter 583. The primordial sky demon was not tolerated by the nine heavens. When it died, even its bones were dismantled and sealed by the immortals. It was obvious how terrifying this demon was in the eyes of those experts at the peak of the immortal Tao. Even so, it was still dead. Even the Sky Demon Palace was destroyed in the long river of history. No one would believe that there wasn't a hint of a conspiracy behind this. Therefore, Ling Xiao was more or less worried. When he merged with the Sky Demon's eye, Liang Yi once said that the higher his cultivation, the easier it would be for those immortals to detect him. As for the white-haired woman, she was now a huge variable to Ling Xiao. After all, Ling Xiao did not know whether she was a friend or a foe. Although she killed countless immortal soldiers with a thought in his divine sense, those immortal soldiers did not seem real. However, those immortal armaments did not seem to be real. Instead, they seemed more like the sealing power of the palace hall. And the sky demon was not the primordial sky demon, but the manifestation of Ling Zhao's divine sense. Only that woman seemed to have existed since ancient times. She stood at the peak of the mountain and did not change because of anything. It was getting more and more confusing. Everything in front of him was like a big net. And now, Ling Xiao seemed to be outside the net, but also like he had never escaped. But why did it feel so familiar? It was not only the inexplicable bloodline feeling, but also the absolute coldness. Forget it. It's useless to think too much. I'll ask Xiong Huan and the others when I get out of here. In the end, Ling Xiao did not think too much and walked out of the palace. That immortal must have grown impatient from waiting for so long. Boom! When Ling Xiao walked out of the ancient palace, the majestic golden palace behind him suddenly turned into flowing light and shattered in an instant. The entire immortal world began to be filled with divine light, releasing a dazzling brilliance as if it were a dream. In just one breath, the ancient forest and immortal trees all turned into bubbles and disappeared rapidly before Ling Zhao's eyes. Soon after, the outline of a divine mountain appeared. On the peak of the mountain, the female immortal stood with her hands behind her back, coldly looking at the young man in front of her. Not bad. I really didn't expect that you would be able to suppress the devil bone so smoothly. It's all thanks to Senior's spirit array and the inherited cold moon cultivation method. Ling Xiao smiled indifferently, as if he did not see the joy in the female immortal's eyes. Hee. If this array formation and cultivation technique were useful, I wouldn't have been trapped here for 900 years. Hearing this, The immortal clan woman shook her head slightly and looked at Ling Xiao. In the depths of her eyes, there was a trace of heartfelt fear. So, Senior knows that I'm coming, and also knows what I'm here for? Ling Xiao raised his eyebrows. At this moment, he no longer pretended to be confused. He guessed that this immortal woman must be plotting something, but he still couldn't figure out why she was so sure that someone would come to the immortals to look for the demonic bone. Her strength was clearly higher than the settings of this realm, but even she was powerless against this demonic bone, let alone these lower realm ants. I don't know. That's why I waited for 900 years. The immortal clan woman smiled sweetly. Her eyes were filled with vicissitudes of life. I spent the best 900 years of my life in this arcane pocket realm. I even abandoned my clan members, abandoned my fleshly body, and used my bloodline as a prison to suppress this devil bone. What do you think I'm doing? Ling Xiao? Actually, you don't need to be confused. From the moment you sat on the faceless Heavenly Books memorial tablet, I knew. It was you, and it wasn't you. The immortal clan woman sighed softly with her hands behind her back. She seemed to be surrounded by immortal chi. Right now, her body was inexplicably thin, but there was also an unyielding determination. So, that spiritual Dan, Ling Xiao frowned slightly. He could feel the woman's fear towards the sky demon. That kind of fear made her not dare to say the word sky demon. But it's me, and it's not me. This sentence made Ling Xiao feel inexplicably touched. From the day I arrived here, I destroyed my physical body, passed down my cultivation method, and created the ancient sect of Cold Moon. First, it was to hide my identity and prevent those suspicious old bastards from finding out. I came here to suppress the demonic bone. Second, my physical body was just destroyed. My soul is a little unstable. This palace of Cold Moon can provide me with spiritual materials and resources to help me recover my strength. As for the spiritual Dan, I was afraid that you couldn't find this place. That's why I took out some bait to lure you here. The celestial woman smiled warmly. However, Ling Xiao felt an inexplicable chill at this moment. Aren't you afraid that your plan will backfire and others will take advantage of it? Ling Xiao frowned. To be honest, he had a lot of doubts in his heart. This immortal clan woman's strength was terrifying and her methods were heavenly. But how did she know that he would enter the immortal world this time? Plus, Han Qingqiu had transformed for 17 years. She was the same age as him. Isn't this too much of a coincidence? How do you think she could transform and walk out of the secret territory without me? The immortal clan woman suddenly smiled playfully. The way she looked at Ling Xiao was like she was looking at an ant. This gaze made Ling Xiao's heart grow colder. This was the so-called ancient powerhouse. Her intelligence was close to that of a demon's, and her wisdom was unparalleled. All of your actions were calculated by them. Someone once said that even if a dog has lived for thousands of years, its mind is not something a normal person can imagine. How laughable that there are people who think that villains should be reckless and kill people everywhere they go. If Ling Xiao did that, he would be noticed and killed immediately. But even if he was careful, it seems like he still fell into this immortal clan woman's chess game. It's not that he was careless. It's just that this chess game was set up a long time ago. 900 years. This process was long enough for the chess pieces to hide their identities and blend into the game. They might be useless in normal times, but with just one move, they could change the whole game. That spiritual pill was concocted by me, and it was nurtured by the previous generations of Frost Moon Palace masters. Our relationship was extremely deep. The secret of becoming an immortal was also spread by me. I personally killed Yu Luyan. I had long known that the Holy Sect had always been trying to take control of the Celestial Palace. Thus, I casually gave him a good fortune. After all, those who can guard this world are mostly from my clan. But with such a coincidence, the spiritual pill will definitely think that you died in the hands of the Holy Sect. When she leaves this world, she will definitely seek revenge. And the people she can ally with are definitely not people of the righteous Tao. I only need to use a little trick to make her believe that only the true demon can help her take revenge. So, she will take the initiative to help me find you and bring you to the Cold Moon Palace. As long as you are here, how can you miss out on this opportunity? The female immortal's eyes flashed with deep meaning. In this world, no one can take that step out of the shackles, unless their original body is of the same origin as the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, or they can refine the sacred inheritance of my foliaceae. Even if the spiritual pill falls into the hands of others, it will not be a threat to my existence. As for this immortal medallion, I asked you, to put it in the hands of someone she trusts and spread the secret of the immortals. It is just a precaution. If the spiritual pill is accidentally exposed, there will be people who know that the demon bone is sealed in the immortals. To you, this is an irresistible temptation. So, I believe that you will come sooner or later. I understand. Ling Xiao nodded indifferently. From the beginning, he knew that Han Qingqiu's original body was a 9th-grade spiritual pill. However, her hatred for the holy sect was real. Her reverence for the previous Cold Moon Palace Master was also real. So, as a chess piece, her identity did not arouse Ling Xiao's suspicion. As for the good fortune in this immortal land, since he was a devil, he would eventually come to find this demon bone. And this female immortal only needed to wait here, waiting for him to come. Even if there was no Han Qingqiu, Ling Xiao would still walk the same path. It was just that it might be a little later, or it might be a little more complicated. Han Qingqiu fell into his hands. Even if she was eaten, it would increase his strength. To this female immortal, the stronger Ling Xiao was, the easier it would be for her plan to succeed. As for you, Xiao, according to Ling Xiao's thoughts, even if she did not die in his hands, she would most likely become a new chess piece in this female immortal's hands after entering the immortal's world. She might even clear the obstacles for him and escort him, just so that he could finally enter the ruins. In this place, this female immortal was indeed a supreme existence. It was easy for her to control a god emperor, whether it was the immortal medallion or the inheritance of cultivation techniques. Since this female immortal knew Ling Xiao's identity, she would definitely have a way to attract him. However, you're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.